Okay,
organized on my computer a little bit.
I think I'm online.
Oh.
And I'm just going to get ready by going to my advertising spots. Give a chance for some folks to come in here if they want to. I'll make sure the sound is good. Test, test, test. Yeah, that's good. And let's see. Okay, so um, oh, it's slow to post.
Yeah. Internet's been a little slow on my phone. I think it's just
Has
all
it?
the rain.
I hope it goes over. Maybe I should cancel and try it again. Sometimes a different timing. It might get jammed.
Well, you don't necessarily have to share it, I guess. If it's
Let's see,
gonna
try it
cause a
again.
problem.
I can just do it the old-fashioned way.
Not the old-fashioned way.
That went through
Good.
to Facebook.
Like you said, sometimes it just
Right.
gets jammed up.
And Twitter X. Okay, cool. And I got, let's see, over to the chat, Midnight Cooking, good evening. Finch, greetings
Remember to do live all chat.
to all.
Remember to do the all chat.
Yes. Yes, for, Kathy's here. I'm in our home so that we can both add into what all there is to talk about. Finch says hi, Kathy.
Hello.
And New Start says hello. And, oh, I didn't pop out the chat yet. I don't know what kind of signal we got today. Uh, for a while, we had a really bad signal. And then it seemed to get better. I don't know where we were then.
Texas?
Yeah, that's right. We're not in Texas anymore.
We were experiencing a lot of weather, though, here.
So I forgot to put in here the part about what this was that I've got here displayed on my screen. And it's from session 7 of Beyond Human.
Are you connected?
I should be. Okay, that's good enough. I should be. Casey
Okay.
Crowell says hello.
It just took forever.
Hello
to
back.
load.
Oh really?
I got it now. It's just. I think it's just our internet. It's fine.
No, I just did a bunch of changes to it, so
Maybe that was because
I don't know if that
as I
slowed
was
things
trying to
down.
get in.
the connection's
It's
not the
weird.
best.
It's working good. It looks good. It actually looks good. The picture looks good, and
Oh, cool,
you can read the writing, and
cool.
yeah, it's good.
I guess Texas wasn't very good to us in that regard, right? Is that where we had all that?
Well, we hadn't updated the settings on. Hey, John S. Had not updated the settings on YouTube, and when you did that, or OBS, or I think Casey Strange recommended that. And then John is starting you off with a pretty good question of what we
Okay.
wanted to discuss. So part of what you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, so John says, Sawyer, don't know if this had been addressed. Any comments to the Mercodi interview that was recently released? Yes. Lots of comments. It's been on Kathy and I on our mind for days, every day, a lot.
Well, first, like, it should be said that we're, and I'm not going to talk a lot because I can't control myself. And that's a fact. And so, in an effort to control myself, I just have to mute myself, which I'm not doing a good job of right now, but that's okay. I, for one, am very happy that Mark did an interview. And I did not have any issue, and not that it would matter if I did have an issue with that. Like, I hope that nobody is thinking that our reaction is because Mark gave an interview to somebody. And that's not why, if anybody's been over on the Reddit or Discord, you probably know a little bit about what's going on. And we're not upset that Mark gave an interview, and we're not upset that Matt, who is Varsity Bookworm, did an interview with Mark. Like, that's not what we were upset about. What I am personally upset about is that Matt came to the Savannah meeting that we had, and he approached me and approached me as a friend and as somebody that was seeking the information and somebody who was a potential believer. That's how he presented himself to me. And I responded to that. And that event was almost an 8-hour event. And it seemed like every time I turned around, Matt was by me and talking to me, which was fine. A lot of people were talking to me. Not like I'm anything special or anything, because I'm not. But in hindsight now, he was pursuing me. This is my opinion of what happened in retrospect. He was pursuing me to get to Sawyer. And just think about that for a second and how that would make you feel. Anybody out there in the world. If somebody came to you and acted like they were a friend and that they believed in what you believed in, and that they wanted to know more because they were going through turmoil in their life and they were seeking answers and the truth, and they wanted to talk to your significant other, because Sawyer is my significant other. We are partners. We love each other. And I said, okay, I want to help you. Yeah, of course we'll give you an interview. We give lots of interviews. But Matt approached me as somebody who needed help and somebody who wanted to know the truth about the group and about Sawyer and about the lawsuit that was going on with Mercody and Sarah Fody. That's how he presented himself to me. I gave him my phone number. I've never given anybody my personal phone number, except for Casey Strange. That's it. And one other person. I gave him my phone number. I communicated with him. And I invited him into our RV to do an interview. That lasted for almost 6 hours. And all of that was great. And then Matt followed up and asked me if I could get him in touch with Carlotti. And then a couple months later, could I give him information about our lawsuit? Could I ask Sawyer if that was okay, if he could post all this stuff on a website that he wanted to start about our lawsuit, about, like I have all these texts. I can publish all of these texts where he was fishing for information from me. And I fell for it. And I gave him all the content that he wanted. And he also approached somebody else in the same manner. And that person thought that they were friends with him as well. And that person is very hurt too. So when the interview with Mark came out, Matt didn't bother to contact Sawyer or I and just say, hey, heads up, guys, I've been talking to Mark. Even though I know you guys have been going through a lawsuit and you told me all about it. And I sent you a long, long text saying I wanted to know the truth about it and everything about it. And I want to tell the whole truth. Okay, so Mark said in his interview that it was just a little legal matter that was almost over, and he just had to wrap it up. And once that legal matter was taken care of, that things would be okay. And so I made a comment on that video, and I said, I'd just like to mention that Mark and Sarah are suing Sawyer, Carlotti, and myself. They're asking for over $300 million in damages from Sawyer, $300 million for sharing next level information, $300 million. They're asking for over $100 million for Carlotti, and they're asking for $200 million from me. $2 million because I sat next to Sawyer while he played a tape on the live stream. And because I said bad things about them because I was mad.
not bad things, but curse
I
words.
said curse words and I used bad language and expressed
Anger
anger with them.
yes. Didn't threaten them with anything,
And
or trying to
so all of this stuff takes
put them
place,
down,
and
really.
I just wrote my comment and
Except call out some of the things that aren't true.
right. And
That they've
Sawyer
said.
made a comment. Mark said that him and Sarah had been in the group for 25 years. Well, they got kicked out in 1987 and never ever rejoined the group. I could be wrong about that, but
No, that's not wrong about
some of the very last communications from Doe and the group list Mark and Sarah as former members. There are other people that are listed as members. So I take with that what you will. But we don't, that's not the thing to, that's,
Before I forget it, I think where that comes from, the 25 years, in Mark's mind, I could be wrong about this. I'm not trying to communicate with him directly, because if he's speaking publicly, then the whole thing is going to be public in my mind. I don't have this little side issue of, like lawyers want you to do in order to, anyway, have communications that are indirect in a public subject.
so anyway, Matt deleted our comments that we tried to tell him what was going on with the lawsuit, even though he is well aware of it, because it appears that he's charging for information to our lawsuit on his Discord server. We don't know if that's him or not, but somebody is charging people information so they can get access to Pacer records, which are free. You can go on Pacer. All you have to do is make an account, and you can access all of our court documents for free, as long as you access less than 300 pages in a 3-month period. But guess what? We will email you all of our lawsuit papers.
I don't know, baby, if I want to do that.
I don't care. It's all public
I
information.
also want to take the time to be
I don't want
emailing
people
stuff.
profiting off of our suffering.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's what whoever has that Discord server up with our lawsuit, court documents on it, and charging people to see them.
Yeah, that's
Those
really
documents
bad news.
are free, and
Yeah.
you should not pay for them.
No.
Ask us, we will send them.
You don't have to pay for any of the Heaven's Gate information. Tiendo didn't leave a pay schedule.
So that's why I'm
Everything's-
mad at Matt, because he lied to me and he manipulated me to get to Sawyer, to get to Carloti, to get to our lawsuit information, and then he won't take down the videos that have me in them. He says that what our words are, the interview that we gave him, is his research, and that we're compromising his journalistic integrity. And that we were nice, kind, compassionate people, but as soon as he stepped out of line, we were so quick to turn on him. So you
yeah,
lied, and he's here. So you lied to us, and you acted like you were my friend. And that hurts, Matt. That hurts. I'm a real person, and you know that. That's not right, dude. And for you to post your opinion about Heaven's Gate information as if it is fact, that is also not right.
Give your sources.
If you want to share the information, share the information.
That's
if you
an
want to
opinion.
share your opinion about it, share your opinion about it. But don't act like you're Ben Zeller or you're Rob Balsh
Well,
or you're any of those guys.
I mean, you may be one day, of course, in that.
And you're not a journalist by
it's
lying
not-
to people and getting information out of them. So that's why I'm hurt. You didn't step out of line. You lied to me. You manipulated me. And that really hurts. Now I don't want to ever talk to anybody else again about this.
which is
Because
a
I'm
mistake.
scared that they're going to be doing what you did. That's messed up, dude. I'm a real person. I'm not an entertainer. My life is not entertainment. It's not for sale. Our lawsuit isn't funny. It's not a game. We're being sued for hundreds of millions of dollars.
So Finch says their lawsuits, according to my knowledge, will be thrown out.
Right, and that's something that
T&O will take care of these people.
This is our life for the last 3 years.
Yeah, I've got a lot to say about it, but I'm wanting Kathy to express directly what you're experiencing. No, don't be sorry.
And I can read exactly the text that I wrote to Matt, that he said that I sent him vitriolic, manipulating, demanding his research to be taken down. I'm demanding you take down my image. My words and Sawyer's words are not your research.
Well, I would disagree that it's not research. To want to hear things about T&O that,
I don't know, every time I get a little thing that I want to research and I go after it, Sawyer's seen me go after things 100 million times. I got 10 books over here on the same pretty much subject that I'm reading. I don't lie to people to get information out of them. I don't do things and act a certain way. I just research.
Yeah, that's straightforward.
You don't have to make stuff up. We would have gave you an interview, dude. You didn't have to do any of that. And you owe Alexander an apology. You owe us an apology. And if you don't think that you do, then I guess that's something that you need to examine.
I mean, it's a low blow, isn't it, to claim to have a social site for talking to people about Heaven's Gate, and a forum for learning, for research.
And to take what I said, I wanted to start a Heaven's Gate study center, and that's exactly what you called your thing. Thanks, dude. Thanks a lot.
But it's one thing to do that and want to do that, and then the next thing to post a YouTube video with interviewing Mark King, okay, and then expecting that, and then when I posted my comment on that, or several comments on that, which were very long, because I have a lot to say about that interview, then you turned comments off, and Kathy commented before I did about some things that she already brought up tonight about the 25 years, the exaggeration, which I didn't explain where I think that came from, for whatever it's worth, in my opinion. And Mark can update if he wants to come in here and type an update. He does that sometimes, if I got it wrong. But I think it was that T&O had been offering him and Sarah tasks to do for years before, ever since they left. When they were sent to leave, Doe said that they needed to leave the classroom unless they wanted to follow the instructions of certain ways of the next level that surround the topic of independent thinking, because the whole premise of T&O's task was to adopt your older members' thinking. And so you wouldn't ever have confidence that you see things in a correct way, whether it's judgment-minded, of judging a circumstance to be what it is, even though there's extremes to that. Like, you wouldn't say, if somebody said, what's the weather like outside, and you said it's sunny out, that's a fact. That's a decision that's made, right? You're stating it as a fact. I mean, it's quite possible that you could have been deluded at that moment and actually not seen the right thing, I guess, if you're on drugs or something. Right? I'm just being silly a little bit. But, uh, but the point is that some people trust their own judgment so much that they don't actually literally consider other ways of thinking. And that's actually all of us, I think, have some of that characteristic. Well, maybe some more than others, though. Yeah, that's the way it is throughout this human kingdom, right? Everybody's got their package of, and self-confidence in the human kingdom is needed, even though there's lots to be learned by questioning our judgment, because it's the same thing, recognizing that there's more happening beneath the surface than we can imagine, and that's actually the truth. There's discarnate beings floating around, and there's the space alien souls. They don't. Well, I don't know if they float around, but they occupy human equivalent vehicles that they manufacture, that they grow right on their spacecrafts. That's their program, the hybridization program they've had, and that's why they wanted human sperm and eggs. To be able to do that kind of thing of growing new vehicles that they can then take over because they're a soul, they exist, they're real, they have more reality in them than others on the planet because they actually qualified to graduate into next level membership for a time period as elementary, according to Doe, elementary lessons, tasks they had. Like the Watchers, that was the first elementary lesson.
Talk, I don't hear him say, according to T and Doe, or I heard Doe say, or
right.
that I think about that.
And it's one thing, we can trust our memory too much, of course, in what Doe said and didn't say. So, I can be wrong. In some of the parts of what I'm saying, it wouldn't be all of the parts. And that would be a way that the lower forces could come in and say, "Oh, well, sorry, you have your beliefs too," and you're interjecting your own mind into the story if you're not just quoting exactly what Tiendo said about this and about that. So yes, that's true that I am injecting my own mind, and that's the whole process anyway. That's the overcoming process. That's also the lesson ground of doing a task for the next level is that you're going to do it so that it's real. It's not like something where you study the book and the book said that thou shalt not kill, and therefore that's what you're going to tell everybody is the truth that they must follow. Thou shalt not kill, and then you put all your spins on it, right? Unless it's this circumstance or that circumstance, now it's okay to kill, because for all these reasons, and so all of a sudden now, what was the truth no longer looks like the truth anymore. In fact, it's the opposite. And that's what we see the world going through. Anyway, I didn't mean to get into that. But it's like they're not following the lesson plan. And this is the next level's guard. They own this place. They own all of us. We don't even overcome the world without their gift of that to us, which it talks about in session 7 of the Beyond Human tapes. Doe talks about it.
Address the market.
Yeah, so I asked a varsity bookworm through an email I sent 2 emails to him to make sure he got them, and I don't know if he got them. I guess I don't know for sure that he got them, but all I did was ask him why he took the comment down that I made, the comments down that Kathy and I made, and a few other people made on the interview with Mark and Sarah. Not Sarah, but just Mark. And I got no response. But the next day or two after that, Matt put up this update in the Reddit feed. And in the update, he said a lot of the things that Kathy was using some of the same words, and that we were like there was a group of 6 people. Maybe I should read it.
He said half a dozen people, which, to my knowledge, I have contacted him. The other individual that Matt lied and acted like his friend to contacted him, and he completely ignored him after that individual would not actually call him and speak on the phone because that individual felt like he needed things to be in writing.
And making us look like in the Reddit feed, not that I'm, personally concerned with that, how I look, because if I was concerned with how I look to people, then I wouldn't be talking about this in public at all. It's not enough of a concern anyway. But when somebody actually accuses you of things and doesn't give you the chance uh, to have a discussion about it, give me some examples. If I'm one of the people, I know he lumped, like he said, roughly 6 people that were Heaven's Gate believers that were giving him all kinds of trouble, and we didn't give you any trouble. We didn't give you one stitch of trouble. You're lying to say that to people, and you're responsible for what you say. You can't just say whatever you want and think that there's no responses that come from that, from other people, and from even the next level. I'm
So
not saying
I
even the
can
next level,
I
but
can read out the exact text that I sent him. So I sent him a text on March 29th at 7:20 p.m.
this is a lesson for him.
and I
If you can
said
take it.
I said, "Hey, I just want you to know that I am very upset about what you've done and what you've been doing. You were not in the Heaven's Gate group. You do not know what you're talking about, Matt, respectively. And for you to act like you're an authority on the group and Heaven's Gate, well, I am worried about you. But I am so upset with what you've done and what you've been doing on Reddit and making your own study center about Heaven's Gate that is misinformation. You kept sending your things to Sawyer. He tried to give you corrections where you were just flat out wrong. You didn't listen at all. And now for you to go and act like you know everything about Heaven's Gate and you're the ultimate authority. I just want you to know that I am furious with you. Honestly, we trusted you and let you into our home. Just so you know, you're twisting the information and you're distorting it. And you will have to deal with the consequences of that eventually." So I'm guessing that that last sentence that I said to him is where he's saying that's vitriolic and manipulative and demanding and controlling. But that is the truth. All of us are going to have to deal with the consequences of what we do. All of us get the life that we deserve. That was the exact text that I sent to him. The next text that I sent to him, I said, "Don't bother to respond. I blocked you. But you need to know you have upset me tremendously." Those are the 2 texts that I sent him. No cussing, no name calling. I just expressed how I was feeling with what he did to me.
Now I don't well, it may be a fault that I was very slow to kind of see some handwriting on the wall, but this is a lesson. That's why we labeled this Life's Big and Small Little Lessons. But lessons are not easy. We get criticism. We can go after the messenger, right, of that criticism. But if anybody is really trying to be a student of the next level in whatever form they think of that as, like, towards God, then they want to know to some degree if they're getting off track on what God would have us do. And of course, we all have things in the human kingdom that God doesn't ultimately want us to get involved with, but knows that there are options that we can learn for ourselves are not something that we want to repeat. And so we get warnings about things. I think all people do about, you see something, some people to hang out with, and you know, you get a sense that maybe that's not a good idea for some reason. Maybe that's not the right crowd that you want to hang out with. So you don't do it. And there may be nothing that comes from it, of course, many times. But one time it may just feel like you have this subtle thought not to do it, and then you go. A lot of times people go ahead and they do something, and then they get other indications, and then they leave that environment. I don't know how all the ways that it can work, but that all is, we're all learning to be able to seek and search for, well, ultimately to lead to actually overcoming the human kingdom and all its characteristics. And it's step by step. It's like those said in session 7, item by item went through, and he was talking about how people didn't need to go through. He was thankful that people didn't need to go through all the lesson steps that they went through from 1975, because see, what people don't necessarily see in that is other things he said about that. In order to, and this gives answer to the 1994 group that joined and thereafter, that ended up leaving after a short time. It's because those student body had already formed, I guess, the evolutionary condition, the condition of mind necessary to keep the perspective of what the next level has in store for people, to graduate out of the human kingdom, to become new creatures with new physical bodies, and tasks on spacecrafts that design this planet. It's not an exaggeration.
John S. has made some good points just about the interview. Which
You
that was
You
my...
want to read them for me?
That was my thing, too. Well, people seem to get upset when I read their comments for you, so I think they have been told not to do that, so...
Well, let me say one more thing, though, about the interview with Mark. The first thing I said in the comments, well, it's a big subject, and I really should just put my comment on the screen here. Maybe I will do that. I can do that really quickly. You have something you can say to...
I don't want to make anybody mad by reading their comment out to you.
On my comment?
John says that Mark didn't seem to offer any insight into anything whatsoever in regards to Next Level Mind. Just some cryptic info about what him and Dr. Zeller have planned in Robert Balch. And that was what I was talking about with Sawyer too. Like, why would you work with people? Ben Zeller is very vocal about his opinions and the research and the conclusions that he's drawn about the group. And I could be wrong about this because I haven't like written down anything he said, but Ben Zeller has said that the group was brainwashed and they were all programmed and mind controlled, and that it's so sad what they did. And he speaks against the members of the group. Me personally, if I had been in the group and somebody was talking about my friends the way that Ben Zeller talks about the class members, I would not want to talk to him. Like, don't talk about my friends like that. That's rude.
Yeah.
Like, that's my best friend, dude. And so for Mark to like say that Ben Zeller has a pretty good handle on things, and that's just I don't know. Why would you like be working with people that are against the group and have said things against the group? And Robert Balch infiltrated the group and pretended a lot like Matt did with us. So I guess I know who his influence was in that regard. Um, I don't trust people like that.
See, that's deceitful behavior. It's manipulative.
Yeah, that's not journalistic integrity.
And
to lie to people. So John also says Matt also didn't press him at all why he is suppressing the tapes from the classroom being spread to the public. Mercoti and Serafodi are trying to withhold T and Doe's information, which isn't theirs. Oh, thank you, Hyper Baroque.
yeah, and Finch, I read everything you were saying. I agree.
Thank you,
That,
Finch. And
well, I
thank
don't
you,
know
John.
about being. Of course, I don't know what's going to happen. You can't predict what's going to happen when the next level's in charge of everything, which they are. They're in charge of what the humans are allowed to do.
Midnight Cooking, I see your question, and that's a really good one. And Sawyer, I'll make sure he gets to that.
And so they allow us to go through all these lessons, but we don't know if the next level wants to take advantage of this. The choice is made, stimulated by Mark and Sarah. You could say it was stimulated by me because I play tapes on my channel, but that's kind of ridiculous. But that's what I'm being accused of, doing. By the way, which might have something to do with the way that Doe talked about the direction that Mark and Sarah were going to after they left, which they don't see that as happening the way that I've reported it, and that Carloti is also evidence to what happened, and I could get some others to provide evidence about what happened if I wanted to, but I don't really care to. But they were sent out of the classroom, and they became new agey, Doe said in the tape, and we have the tapes. I'm not into really criticizing them, except when they don't tell the truth, because that's not fair. That is created by the lower forces about the next level. Look at the religions that have formed around the initial next level stimulus of those religions. That formed because of the way that those Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls have been dominating the culture and get everybody to fight against each other and believe different things to the point of killing each other, as they're doing now too. They're all in these different forms of beliefs in what the end of the world is and all this stuff, and they've got to have all their underground cities and their minerals all over the planet, and draw up the boundaries so they all have access to the ports so they can make billions and trillions of dollars so they can build missiles and
Don't get off track.
and kill each other, and then who knows what's going to be left by the time these humans get through with it all. But the next level can finish it whenever they want to, and so this is all opportunities for everybody to show what they believe in.
One really important lesson that I've learned in this experience that we're going through is that it's not about. So I was really upset, and will you hand me the Heaven's Gate book? And I wanted to play a tape while we were driving. We left Texas and we came to outside Cincinnati, and I wanted to listen to a tape because that's what I do when I'm upset. But I couldn't get the tape to play right through our system. And anyway, when we stopped, I couldn't, I don't know, like it wasn't working for me to listen to a tape. So I grabbed the Heaven's Gate book, and this is my copy of the Heaven's Gate book. I put it in a binder because I have just gone through it like crazy, and it's all messed up and whatever. So I opened the book to wherever, and it was session 7. The very end of it.
You just opened to it now.
Yeah.
And earlier today, she just opened the book right to the right page, and there wasn't a tab on that one page.
No, which is surprising
She
to
just,
me.
she's got this sense.
But what I learned and what I needed to learn was that this is a quote from Doe. You know what our needs are, but I know that I need to ask you to supply our needs. Then I need to examine if I think they aren't supplied when I've asked you. Then I must have a misconception of what our needs are. We need to re-examine what our needs are, because you do take care of our needs. A little further down, Doe says, he said, ask in the way that you're saying, thy will, not my will. You know my needs, and if I'm looking to you, I must trust that you will supply my needs if I'm looking to you. So that really hit home for me, and that it's Doe and Tease and all the representatives of the next level, but Doe is my link to the next level. T is my link to the next level. They're all of our links to the next level, and that's why we go through them. And that's why we don't say, next level, help me. You could say whatever you want. But the first time I actually spoke to Doe and asked him, this is what I received. So it's not about us. It's about them and their information. As long as we share their information in the truest form it is in, which is straight from them, then we are okay. We're doing what they want us to do. And that's all we have to do.
That's what they said. In different words, they said the dissemination project, the dissemination of our information, the get our information out. They want to give people a chance to learn in depth about what they were all about. And that, the items in storage were even to be sold in order to provide funds for those that were going to make it their task to disseminate their information to others. And it had to be a dissemination of each person. It's not a group dissemination. You can't assign the dissemination only to these 2 people over there with, who are the webmasters of the Heaven's Gate website, which is what they said to us in the meeting that we had with them when we were trying to work out some kind of a deal on
they insist
providing the information.
Yeah, they insist on a
They said
legal
that why
basis.
isn't what we're doing enough, with the Vimeo site and for the Beyond Human series, and but they don't get the point that, like Junodi talks about in the Away Team from Deep Space Services Before Departure. No, that was the one. Yeah, where she talks about how all the souls who were back during this time period. And she was talking to people after they were gone as well. It's very clear in the context.
That's why they put the book out.
That's why they put the book out in 1996. Anyway, so that all the souls were back, and that they're being given the opportunity to get their information out. That's the job that all the souls that are back are trying to take vehicles over so that they can use those vehicles as servants to the next level. Because the next level doesn't need servants, but we need to become servants if we're going to become members of the next level, because they're all based on the same idea of service to their older member. the one who birthed them into the next level, up to the chief of chiefs, which we don't know anything about because we're not capable of understanding much about the chief of the chiefs until we become beginner members in the next level. We can understand more, is the way I believe Doe said it, and I could be wrong about some of the way I said that. But anyway, so as soon as the perspective that I've been getting from all this is the way that it's a duplicate. It seems to be a duplicate of what happened 2,000 years ago, but in a different small time period compared to that big time period when Jesus was here after he left. Because, pretty soon Constantine ended up taking over and creating the Catholic Church, from my research. If anybody says that's not true, let me know why. But it was the state coming in to make the rules of what the church would be. Okay? And then assigning the individuals that at that point were having some association with the state, I imagine, with the belief system from Jesus. After the for years of the Romans going against the Jews and the Christians, and those that were becoming known as Christians, they were colluding with the state in order to have rights and have their own Vatican, their own land that they could, and then to influence the kings over the time, and so that whole structure was the downfall of a big part of the truth about what the next level was all about, that even entailed leaving this kingdom, even with a physical body. And that's one of the things that Mark failed to talk about a little bit when he said, he used the word can't. Mark, I hope you can hear this and respond to me and let me know if we can have a talk. We can talk on the phone. I'll talk with you. I just don't. I know from our past conversations that I'd rather have things in writing now, I guess, also. Yeah. Because I don't know how things could be used against me. But because you've done a lot of deceitful things in those lawsuits, everybody can see it if they want to. Read everything about the preliminary injunction that they tried to have against us, right from the beginning, before we even had any defense.
Yep, they tried to take Sawyer's channel down.
They wanted us to take everything down.
Even saying to his face, I'm not coming after your channel, Sawyer. I don't want to take your channel down. Less than, I don't know, a month or so later, we started getting copyright strikes on the YouTube channel by the attorney. I don't think attorneys just go ahead and start doing that unless they're directed to by their clients.
It's the same influences, the same Luciferian, space alien, fallen angel souls. They're actually real entities, real beings that influence people. And they're very shrewd, they're very conniving, they're very, like Jesus said, be as keen as the wolves, but be as gentle as lambs. But that can also be construed as well, I don't want to go there right now, but shrewdness. Wolves are shrewd in a certain way for a certain objective. So if we have wolf behavior, predatory behavior, then we're acting like that wolf. It doesn't mean that we can change it. It doesn't mean we're judged as in hell or anything. It's our vehicle. We're allowing our vehicle to be used by an evolutionary level below the next level, the human kingdom. And the human kingdom is saturated with the influence of the Luciferian, space alien, fallen angel souls. I'm not talking about the devil, but I am talking about the devil. But that's been made into this thing, this cultural thing now, to where the devil is the hero in the stories, and which is not knowing what the devil is. It's a joke now, that word, just like God's almost a joke word. And then the other side of the extreme is when somebody determines that they're talking to God and somebody else isn't. Only if you use this terminology are you talking to God. Only if you use this religious belief and cultural system and these behaviors and ways, the way you crucify yourself. And
well, we've been listening to the Bible too. We started with Matthew, and Jesus talks about you can judge men by their fruits, their actions. Like, they can speak a lot of words, but look at what they're actually doing. Yes. So we hear the words that Mark speaks, and then we look at what Mark is doing. So Mark said on that interview, Sawyer is a joy. Sawyer was my classmate. I want to work with him. We just have to do this little legal matter. We have to do it per our instructions and have a legal basis for disseminating the information. That's what Mark said. Okay, so I approached Mark 4 years ago, and he and Sawyer weren't pretty much even talking at that point. And I said, let me be the go-between. I want you guys to get together. And then a couple months later, we were all sitting down in their attorney's office in Phoenix, Arizona, which Sawyer and I traveled to at great expense to ourselves, to this meeting with them. And we were supposed to be coming up with a way that we could share the information and they wouldn't be angry at us for doing that. That's what we were supposed to be doing at that meeting. They served us with a cease and desist letter. I actually wanted to meet at a restaurant or a park as friends, as former classmates with Sawyer and Mark and Sarah. They hadn't met up for a really long time. I just thought maybe if they just get together, because I was naive. And less than 6 months later, I was getting sued for the tune of $2 million. So those are the actions that Mark took to try to work out to let us share the information. We tried. We went to great expense to travel across the damn country to meet up with them in person. And then later on, things got really bad, and then I reached out again. Can we meet up? Can we just meet up like I wanted to? Can we meet at a park and talk this over? And Mark said, sure, yeah. It'd be great.
Did you say he said something about Sarah wanted to end
they wanted to end the financial stuff. They were done with it. Okay, so we don't have any money. Everybody is pretty clear of that. We're broke. We literally have pennies in our accounts right now because Texas was not good to us. We limped back to Cincinnati.
But got us down to no backup funds.
So, hopefully nothing happens. But we're poor. Mark and Sarah live in a $500,000 house in Phoenix, Arizona. And so they wanted us to come travel again to come see them. And when it came down to it, we just didn't have the money to do that again, like we had done the first time. And when I told him that, I said, we just don't have the funds. We can't take a cross country road trip right now to come meet. We just don't have the money. And he said, gosh, I'm sorry you don't want to work things out. I guess that's it then. And I emailed him back and I said, well, what do you mean? We can still talk on the phone. We can still email. And then I didn't get any response from him ever again, except for when they sued us.
Can I step in for a second? Because when Mark said
Those are the
a number of
actions of
times
somebody who wants to work with us.
that we need to be legal, he wants the information to get out, but it needs to be done legally. And
We asked him for his
what
instructions.
what the problem I have with that is that why can't it be done both legally and independent of the system, just freely available, like on these different websites that are being put up, that people put up and take down, and I can't really talk about because I'm supposed to, they can put it in their documents that I said this about that, and they can use that as evidence that
We're sharing the information.
that I'm sharing the information that's got copyrights on it, and whether I am or not, because you never know. Not everything has copyrights on it. Anyway, and even though they're trying to copyright more stuff, I don't know why they just haven't done it all yet, because who knows? But they keep on putting different authors on the copyrights that they take out.
Just be careful with what you're saying,
Okay.
because we
All right.
still have to go to trial with this.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
for Mark to say it's just a little legal matter and it'll be over soon, we haven't even gone through discovery and we have not gone to a trial. We haven't had a trial.
You said
This
that a
is
year ago.
This is a federal court case.
He's so sure that he's gonna. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what Rob Balch and Ben Zeller are thinking with Mark and Sarah, and who else, whoever else. I don't know. If they're trying to work on a movie deal, and it's actually a genuine, correct, like from the script that T and Do wrote, one of the scripts that they wrote. Then I think that'd be great. But I don't know if you have to hide that. They've told us that they're still working on it, and that Rio's still working on it in some way, and because he was also given help from the next level from Do to work on something in that regard with the scripts and things. It was primarily his task. And anyway, but I don't know why he's of the kind of frame of mind, like in the classroom in a sense, of need to know basis. He's not going to say anything unless he slips, which he's done a number of times on this channel. So he's probably better off not coming over here. But but the thing is, see, why can't the material be free for everybody in an informal way instead of being restricted to being one little avenue of availability of the information? And you can say, well, we can keep it in its purest form. People are going to change it. And what I told Sarah about that, to some degree, is that you're not going to change that. You're not going to change what people are going to do with it. Who knows what kind of skits they're gonna make. I know I saw one recently that was kind of related. They were even tagging Heaven's Gate when they make crazy skits now, because they can get more of a following. And so there's all kinds of, and yes, I'm glad they are protecting the information, and the website. I think it's great, but they're not the only ones that could have done the website. I offered to help with that or take it from them if it was too much of a burden, responding to a few emails every day, with their stock responses. And I'm not, I know they probably received death threats. I don't know that for a fact, but they said they did. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I've gotten some indirect death threats as well.
Interesting messages.
Well, yeah, I've had people say that I needed to be stopped. How are you going to stop me? What are you going to do? You're going to make me
Or that you're mental.
get the government to stop me? Or
Hyper Baroque, like, a lot of people have said that about the money, but here's the thing. Mark and Sarah went to war with San Diego County, and in that judgment,
they had a lawsuit.
yeah, they had a lawsuit with San Diego County, and the stipulation of that judgment of them getting the material was that they were not to sell anything. They legally are not allowed to sell any Heaven's Gate stuff.
But if they can keep it in a non-profit corporation, I guess, that's non-profit, because there's some kind of finagling that goes on with that.
Regardless,
or LLC or something, I don't know. Maybe then they can have another entity that they create.
Okay, but
actually
regardless
sell it.
of that, the T-Law Foundation has recorded 0 profits since their inception. They have never.
There might be
They
a
have
little bit
not
from
claimed.
books, right?
They have not claimed any profit according to their tax returns with the IRS.
And Carl Lodi did a lot of work on that.
So
to document that.
They don't have any financial loss. They don't have any financial gain from this material. When you order a book from them, they make you pay in cash. We always wondered why that was. Because there is no record of cash.
Well, they think of it as security too, because then you can't trace to where they are.
Right.
If you're a sleuth.
And there is no record.
So I mean, I'm not going to fault them for that. I don't know what T&W would do
if it came right down to it, and the government said, "Show us the money," they don't have any money to show on any books anywhere. As far as I am, we're not aware of anything, but it's highly suspicious that you would only accept cash for business stuff.
Yeah, except we know that T&W didn't like credit cards, even though they used them when they had to. Like
I know, I'm just saying, babe, businesses don't operate cash-only basis. The only businesses that operate cash-only basis are drugs and stuff like that.
Whatever, yeah, I know what you're saying. Anyway, but what I was, regarding making money, I know there's some evidence that can be in their minds, and I wouldn't be against them doing that if they were going to still make it free to the public, you know what I mean? So, because Mark at one point said in a meeting that Kathy and I were in, that their image was to release all the tapes like in a kind of a gumball kind of machine kind of way.
Candy
I think
dispenser.
he was just using that as a euphemism for, you send money somewhere and you get a tape sent to you, a digitalized, version.
He didn't say anything about money.
Well,
it wasn't anything.
If you have
about
like a
money.
machine like that, of course, you wouldn't have.
Well, yeah, a bubblegum machine, but
You'd
I
have to
think
pay
he
for
was
the
just
machine.
like they seem to be of the opinion that the information needs to be released on a timed release. So
Yeah, that's part of
if
it.
you email them, they will give you tape 1, and then you have to email them and ask for the next one, and so on and so forth until I guess you've listened to 914 something tapes. So you have to email them 914 times to get each tape.
So what they said to us, that if you weren't thirsty enough, then you weren't going to get the information.
You wouldn't keep asking them for tapes. So, okay, whatever, that's fine. But it's not fine. That's
Not really. That's not a next level way of doing it, I don't
We should
believe.
be able to listen to the tapes however we want to. We shouldn't have to go to somebody and email them and say, "May I have the next tape, please? May I have a little more, please, sir?"
Let me put some evidence on that, behind that. Okay, the instructions that they got, which they're saying is the task that was given to them, was to divide the contents of storage that were of value among those that wanted to disseminate their information, and that people could that wanted to disseminate the information could sell some of that, not saying what to sell and what not to sell, in order to pay for the living expenses of those disseminating the information. Okay, so on that basis, Riccoti was perfectly in his rights, knowing that because he read that letter, because Mark gave it to him one night before Riccoti went to knew about the storage compartments.
Well, and Riccoti had his own letter too.
And Riccoti had his own letter, but I don't think it talked about the tapes, the audio tapes.
Right.
But anyway, so as a result of that, Riccoti got the tapes, and then he digitized them, and he put them on CDs, and he paid for the CDs, and he gave them away free.
And Carlotti was involved.
But then
in
he
that
put some
process.
advertising on those CDs with like the Heaven's Gate so-called logo, and as like on mugs, and he had the away team patches. He was selling those, and Mark and Sarah went after him for selling them, and they were threatening him with lawsuits, because I know, because I was actually literally talking to both of them. Mark wanted me to kind of support him in getting back the material that Riccoti got from storage. Not back, because but they were initially supposed to get it all. But Doe also said that Riccoti was supposed to help them with that. So Doe was thinking that they could be a team, and then take that material and at least spread it to the former members that were on the list, which included Juan Odie. Okay, and on that list, and so. I know I got off the track from what I was trying to go to, and I don't know if I can get back to it, but so what they did to Riccoti is what I'm kind of talking about. Is that was the next level. Keeping Riccoti here, because the next level knew, T and Doe knew that Riccoti was fully committed to. He knew who his old members are. He recognized them. And he knew that their information was meant to be shared with everybody who wanted it. And for us to just think that we can judge who's supposed to get it and who's not, that's the same thing as the Catholic Church did. And they persecuted people to the nth degree. They burned them at the stake if they were reading the Bible to people, and they weren't part of the clergy, and they didn't stop. They could be burned at the stake, or run out of the town, run out of the city, and banished.
All kinds of terrible.
And all kinds of terrible things. That was the Catholic Church doing that, because the minds from the fallen angel souls and ended up influencing the humans to have their power, have their sense of superiority, have their sense of being part of God's word, God's next level. I mean, they didn't use the term next level because they weren't smart enough yet to know that it was a real place.
They weren't given that.
And that it was a kingdom level of difference between the human kingdom. There's not, you hear people talking about, there's lots of levels, 14 levels or whatever, they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, and it's good that you brought up the levels, because that is, not that I'm an expert on anything but I do recall, they're, wanting to release the information or give people the information in steps is valid. I think it was in maybe the first 200 tapes. I know that's a huge range of tapes, but where T and Doe were talking about, because I think it was both of them. I could be really wrong about that. But that you could be on the first plateau, the first plane, and then you understand that, and then you're ready to step up to number 2. And maybe there's something that knocks you back down to number 1, and everybody else in the class is on lesson 2 and ready to move to 3, but you got knocked down to 1. You can't skip 2 and go to 3. You do have to go up you do need to know the piano roll. Right. So
the lesson steps.
Like starting to, because most people, I don't know, would want to probably listen to the last few tapes, because it's like, ooh, they all killed themselves, so I want to know what they were talking about right before then. And that's understandable. But you're maybe just going to think it all sounds like gobbledygook because you don't have the foundation that was laid literally 20-something years prior. So we have tapes from 85?
82.
82. We have tapes going to 82 all the way up to 1997, even though Mark and Sarah have withheld over 200 of those. So
it's 200 or not.
Oh, I thought it was.
Maybe I'm getting
I thought
mixed
they
up.
said that there was 1,060 tapes, and we only have 914, and we don't even really have 914 because some of them are not actually there.
Right. We don't know about that. We
So
don't know if
it's a
they've been
little-
manipulated.
It's a little less than
they've
probably
manipulated the
200
lists.
that we don't know what those are, and
They've convoluted the list.
So we don't understand what's going on with that, and why Mark decided that he didn't want to send those tapes to Juan Odie, because that was a judgment that he made, or maybe they're lost. But they said in the lawsuit, we have it in writing, that there are 1,060 tapes. So that's a fact. So the log that we have only goes to 900 and I think 32 or 38, but there are really only like 914 actual audio files.
We have the other logs for the rest of them, or not all of them.
We don't know what tape 1060 is.
Oh, we don't have that in the...
No, they wouldn't give it to us. We asked for it.
No.
We asked for it.
Right.
In the lawsuit, but they wouldn't get. They don't even want us to know the names of the tapes that they are seemingly to hide.
Yeah, they hid all the descriptions.
So why can't Sawyer, who was in the group for 19 years, why can't they give him all the tapes? He was there.
Which is what the Breyer case. If you look into the Breyer case, and a lot of it's been posted on the... Well, no, not that much, actually. There's still pieces of it that need to be posted on Pacer, because the Breyer case actually had a settlement agreement that was mentioned in the consent decree maybe 7 times, and it was spelled out that those that were, the part of it that we don't know, except for the evidence that I have that Carl Odie told me about it years ago before the lawsuit, that he had read from having seen it from
Ricoti's
daughter, that that in the settlement agreement they were supposed to share the information with verified former members, which I can very easily verify, and I did to the court. So they were supposed to share that information, and I can think of different ways that they've misconstrued that, or twisted it in their minds to where I don't deserve to have the material.
Right, and in case anybody doesn't know, the Breyer case, Breyer is the judge's last name. The Breyer case is when Mark and Sarah, so Ricotti took his own life. Ricotti exited his vehicle in the desert, and I don't know if his daughter found him or if somebody else found him and let her know. And about, I think it was 5 or 9 days later. So after Ricotti's daughter learned that her father had committed suicide in the desert in a tent by himself, imagine if you heard that news about your own father. And then Mark and Sarah sued her less than 10 days later. Less than 10 days after her father was found dead, Mark and Sarah sued her. Can you imagine?
And threatened her with the loss of her house.
And you know what they said to us to our faces in the meeting? We didn't sue Rakoti's daughter. What are you talking about? Why would you lie about something that is so easy to prove?
Unless he's losing some of his mind, I guess.
They said
we all
we
do
did
as
not
we get
sue
older.
Rakoti's daughter.
I know. It's bizarre that
Why is
some
there
of
a
the responses I
lawsuit?
hear from the...
Why is there a lawsuit on the books saying that you did less than 10 days after he was found deceased? Why would you do that to somebody?
Yeah. And right. So, like...
Those are their actions. That's their fruits.
Carl Lodi is the witness to that.
That's their fruits.
He's the only witness, well, not the only witness, but...
I'm a new believer, and they sued me. That's Mark and Sarah's fruits.
Yeah. And, they said that if T and Doe were here, they would sue us if their security was threatened, implying that their own security would be threatened by what we do. You know what I mean? That, like, putting tapes out, talking. Because I keep on having the thought that if you believe actually what Doe is saying, if you get that chip of recognition, and it's not something that's going to necessarily knock you over. It may just, dawn on you a few times that, wow, and then it's up to you to grow it if you want to. It's always up to us on what to do with our efforts of asking for, forward motion from the next level and from T and Doe. But
it's not easy, guys. Not easy.
It's but saying that they couldn't have gone on those spacecrafts with their physical vehicles was wrong. It even says it in the Heaven's Gate website that in the document Our Position Against Suicide, it says that we intend, in the first sentence, we intend to leave with our physical bodies, with our vehicles, and then in parentheses said physical bodies. They weren't talking about their soul bodies or the next level body that would be given to them, because they had a human body when they were talking about it. But you can justify it as that, just like people justify whatever they want to justify, and then they begin to believe it. After they've justified it so many times in their mind, they begin to believe it. And I know we're all capable of that.
I don't know how you could justify suing somebody whose father had just died. What Sarah said to our faces was, we didn't know what she was going to do with the information. She wasn't going to protect it.
Why not?
Okay, well, give her like a month. Damn. Can you let her grieve?
Doe knew that there were certain things that I know that Doe did because he got instructions to do it. Okay? And there's other things that I suspect, I shouldn't say I know this, I suspect he didn't do because he didn't have instructions to do it, so he thought that he must need to just treat it in a different way, like the audio tapes, which provided a whole bunch of lessons. You can see all the things that have transpired in this regard and the confusion that people have about it and all that. And that, like Kathy was saying, the next level was feeding us the video, the audios that we could handle. It's really tough to handle a lot of the whole picture.
Yeah.
It's really tough to handle the whole picture if you haven't brought that mind into your system because you didn't fear doing it. Because the world wants you to fear doing it. They don't want you to hear the information. That's not a next level point of view.
Yeah, it's so easy to go, oh my God, that's so crazy. Those people are so crazy. They're so brainwashed and
Yes, it's
mind
very easy to
controlled.
say
And
that.
it's, you know,
And in a sense,
and
that
that's
it's
fine.
true, of course, but it's never true in the context of the way that they think about that. Because they don't know that they're all brainwashed. We're all brainwashed in a lot of different ways. And yet you can have people, they're still selling books talking about, who's brainwashed and who's not.
So I don't know if midnight cooking is still around, which I should subscribe to. Like, do you actually cook on your channel at midnight? Anyway, um, asked a really good question, and it kind of is tying in with what you're talking about a little bit. Speaking of more going on than we can see, but did any of the members of the classroom ever practice remote viewing?
No, I don't believe so. We were against that kind of thing because uh, the idea of remote viewing can be thought of as like astral traveling, and you're projecting your mind someplace,
Oh, right.
and you have to have some coordinates to do that, and so you can see it in that way that that can actually be a reality. But the next level program was focused on staying in your body all the time. And even when you were sleeping, you were to program yourself to stay in your body and not go floating around or traveling. Which I've done some of that in my dreams. To where I used to have it when I was a kid a lot. Where I'd be floating in the air in the basketball court, and I'd be catching the ball, and then I'd be floating to the basket to stuff it in the basket. And I'd feel myself coming closer to the ground, and I could feel myself using my mind to lift myself up above the ground more so I didn't, crash. So I knew that I was controlling that in the dream. And I think that was a form of giving me evidence of what astral traveling is. There may be other things that other people experience that, can show other forms of that. And if that's what it is it maybe it's not that. Okay, I'm not, T and Doe I don't think talked about it that directly, but maybe they did, and if we could have all the, transcripts
Do you think
of the audio tapes, then we could search for things.
when they were talking with their older members that could have involved remote viewing?
No,
Because they never talked like that. They never said the next level brought me onto their spacecraft and told me XYZ.
no, not at all. No, they had a sense when the next level was close. They had times where they got instructions. Uh, there were times when T and Doe knew that she was getting instructions, but Doe didn't understand them as instructions. And Doe said that he had to uh, um, work on getting rid of the the reasons why he didn't want to think about it as an instruction. I'm not probably doing it justice the way I'm describing it, but you can hear him talking about it in the audio tapes. I think. I'm not sure if we've come upon it yet, but he said that another thing that way sometimes he would get the information first, and then he said that T didn't need to adjust when she would recognize that he got the information. And so, but then they would still, even if they both felt like they understood the information, they knew they weren't getting it all. They always knew that they hoped, what they said is that they hoped that they were getting 50% of what was sent to them, what was given to them, whether it was like a blob. Joe described it sometimes as a blob. He didn't know exactly what the techniques were, the technology of giving them the information was, whether they were just in a spacecraft, but he felt like sometimes they were actually in our presence with their physical bodies that were geared to be invisible to humans. And Doe felt that closeness at times from T, and because he learned the difference between when T wasn't there. That and that happened to him enough times to where uh, he knew when T was there, helping him, and whether that was remote or whether she was actually sitting in that chair next to him that he put in the meetings that we had after T left.
There, Henry Helander. Henry Helander. Says, so you found the manuscript for Suicide in Doe's bedroom?
No, no. What I found was, boy, things get twisted, don't they?
Well, it's, just...
It's understandable. That's the way the media works, and so it's good. It's a good question. What I said to people over and over again in a number of interviews with the big media companies was that there was a time when we were moving houses. We lived in houses at the time. It was after T left her vehicle, the way I remember it, and I'm 95% sure of that, 99% sure of that, but and students would move. Doe would take his personal things because he lived in a different house at the time. We called them crafts, and so he took his personal belongings with him. So all that was left was the bed, and he had a little end table next to the bed on the side of the wall where there was a window. And it was an upstairs room, and in a two-story house, and I was on the crew that was going to remove any of the rest of the things that were left behind and put them in the truck to take with us when we were moving to maybe it was Atlanta.
Okay. So what did you find?
Or up north. And so what I found was there was a book on the top of the that end table that I talked about. And so I went over to it and I picked it up and I looked at it, and it was by the Hemlock Society. And it was all the ways that the Hemlock Society wrote down to leave one's vehicle. They didn't say it that way, but that's the more accurate terminology. And because I remember that pretty well, because when we saw the Cocoon movie, and we were thinking about whether T would come with a spacecraft to pick us up, because I think it was after T left her vehicle that we became aware of that movie, or right before, is possible, that we became aware of that movie before T left her vehicle, which wouldn't really matter, but sometime after T left her vehicle for sure. Right at the same time as we moved to Atlanta, Georgia, we had been thinking about whether that would be the way that T was sending us a message of a way to leave by going onto a boat, and leaving with the spacecraft that might come. Okay, and so I'll get to the end of this, but so Doe went and bought a boat. That's what I'm saying. And he had a crew go down to Houston, where it was docked, and paint it and do all kinds of stuff to it to clean it up, to get it ready for if he felt like he got instructions to go out on the boat to wait for a spacecraft to come, then he was prepared to think about doing that. And I remember when we were thinking about it, I remember thinking at the time, well, what if we go out in the boat, and let's say the spacecraft doesn't come, but what if that became the way that we were going to leave, by like sinking the boat? And I remember thinking, well, I don't know if drowning would be a very pleasant way to go, to leave the vehicle. And so you can see why they didn't put that on the air, because it's too much too much words, and yet I don't want the picture to be any less than that, really.
So it wasn't a manuscript, because
Right.
I don't know if that suggests that maybe like somebody
The-
in the group wrote it or something.
Right.
It wasn't a manuscript. It was, hey Carlotti, it's really good to see your name pop up.
Yeah, hi,
Um,
Carlotti.
It wasn't a manuscript. It was a book by the like.
Yeah, you can
Sawyer
find
was
it.
saying,
It's still around.
I
I think it's
actually,
called
yeah,
Final Exit or something.
yeah, that is what it's called. Thank you. I have it. I have a copy of it. It's actually like a medical book
Oh, I got to finish something, but go ahead.
about, but there's another part to that I didn't read. So I want you to address that too, because you are, but it's a medical book. It's about people that are terminally ill and maybe have years left to be in that condition, and the Hemlock Society felt that people should have the right to in their own pain and suffering, and so they recommended going. I read it. They recommend talking to your doctor, that some doctors would give patients the medication needed to go ahead and make that happen, so where you could take your own life because of how much pain you were in because you had cancer, terminally illness. That's what that book was addressing. And there's lots of disclaimers. That book was not a manuscript for suicide. That's not the intention of the authors of that book.
No.
And then, so the rest of the of Henry's question is, you found the manuscript for suicide in Doe's bedroom, but you don't think they were heading for it.
Right. Well, that's good, because that's what I was going to bring up.
Right, because I figured you were
That was
addressing
the first time that I ever thought about leaving in that way, even though because T taught right from the beginning that you don't have to die to go to the next level, and some of the human evidence records of that we have is what happened to Jesus. He took his physical body with him into the next level, onto that next level spacecraft behind the cloud there, and also Elijah left with a witness, or maybe more than one witness. But and then there was
Enoch, right?
Enoch, who was recorded as having been taken, and who walked with God and was taken by God, and Elohim. And then there was the record of Moses just walking off, and T and Doe felt like his vehicle was taken too, which there's no way to dispute that I'm aware of. But anyway, so, but see, I thought in my mind that I was going to be killed by talking about the information, because I had this martyr kind of complex at the time, thinking that was being the hero, which that didn't apply at all to what was happening now. And Tiendo would say that this is not a martyrdom trip, and that we don't think that they weren't pro-suicide. What was that audio tape we listened to pretty recently?
Yeah.
That told them that they didn't feel like that was something to do. They didn't think that was the way we'd leave.
252?
Tape 252 maybe?
251 or 252?
Yeah, so go look those up if you want to see that part. But but the point right from the beginning was that we'd be leaving. And in about 1978, T and O said to us in a meeting that Pip Odie verified for me a few years ago, that actually he remembered it in the same way that I remembered it, where they said that they might leave before us. Mm-hmm. And they were trying to prepare us for their leaving before us. and which was part of the way that they first talked about it also in 1975 regarding the two witnesses. But they didn't really follow that thought. Once the media broke and they felt like they were shot down by the press, they didn't know that it had another application or not. They didn't really care whether it had another application to leaving with, by our own hand or in any way leaving. Although there was always the program to get your lessons learned as quickly as possible, so that you could leave as soon as possible.
Henry, it's funny because Sawyer and I have had conversations about this too. I'm like, because I've listened to probably at this point over 400 of the audios, and to me, when they were talking about, we're going to board a spacecraft and we're not sure if maybe upon boarding that our earthly body vehicle is going to just be whisked away and we'll be in our next level vehicle, or we're not sure exactly what's going to happen. So I'm listening to this as an outsider, somewhat, I guess, objectionable observer, even though I'm not, because I am. I do believe. Even though I have my own issues, I have my own doubts. I've been going through a lot of stuff. But I asked Sawyer, what did you hear when they said that to you? To me, that sounds like we have to drop our earthly containers to get on this ship. So, what were you thinking as a 20-something-year-old dude sitting there listening to this? What was going through your head? And his answers aren't very satisfactory.
I know. I got my own little tapes that play.
He honestly was not thinking we're all going to commit suicide in X amount of years. That's not
then.
Yeah.
But when we talked about it in 1994,
I'm not sure if that's the question.
Completely natural for me to think about, even though we hadn't been talking about it before then, except in the context that I just mentioned to you.
Yeah.
Because what happened after I saw that book, I laid the book down on the same end table because I didn't know what else to do with it. I might have said something to Lagodi. I don't know if I did or not, but I didn't need to take it. So, and then after that book ended up in our library, which I don't think it was in our library before that. And so I remember picking the book up in the library and reading about what they were saying about different ways to leave, and thinking about, I didn't read the whole book, I don't think, but I thought about, well, that way, I don't know.
It's pretty easy to get a gist. It's
Yeah.
pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. But we didn't talk about it in the group at all, and you can also hear Doe talking about it outside of tea, that it wasn't something considerable at that time.
That's right.
And but then in 1994, after we had been going public with Doe being the return of the same soul that was in the vehicle called Jesus on all our meeting posters, and at the end of that, in late August or early September, Doe called us together and he said that the handwriting is on the wall that we might have to take it upon ourselves to exit these vehicles. And so that gave even those new members that joined, actually before that actually happened, Doe and Helpers, not Doe and Helpers designed a poster to advertise our meetings during 1994 that said that we might take it upon ourselves to exit our own vehicles. And that's in the Heaven's Gate book. But it was, but I think it was never used. But I remember saying that to people because that I was asking help from. Like, we would go into a restaurant to ask for food to help us with, sustenance while we were doing our meetings. and at that time, for that brief period of time. And so I remember saying that to somebody, you know, and well, thinking that no, well, I had a very little sense of how people would respond to it. I mean, I was so brainwashed, right? I had washed my brain out of enough humanness to where I was willing to say the things that T and Do were giving us to say. And you could say, well, yeah, you were a puppet for them. And, the thing with the next level is that the members of the next level want to be a puppet for their older member. But the older members will never make somebody into a puppet because they don't have any need for puppets in the group, in their among their ranks, doing their tasks on spacecrafts that can be as big as planets. And whether we can see them or not, or we can distinguish what they are or not. But so it's like a reversal, a complete reversal of the mind to actually think about what T and Do described as reality. And yet it is the greatest reality that exists, but it takes a stretch over and over again, every day, or maybe not every day, but you're going to be faced with doubts. And doubts are good. Doubts are good. And in the classroom, we all had doubts. We didn't even know we had doubts. I didn't know I had doubts until I looked back on things and saw the way I was thinking about certain things. And I've talked about it many times. I haven't hid next to anything, hardly. It's not hiding when you're not sharing everything about your personal life. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not hiding things. But I can understand Mark and Sarah's concern, like Kathy was talking about, for not giving somebody more than they can handle. And the way that we know what people can handle is by their questions. But I don't do that. If I was walking into a Christian church, I'm certainly not going to walk in there and say, well, I didn't actually do this, but I wouldn't do that now. I wouldn't walk, and I still didn't do it even when T and Do sent us out to talk to the churches and test the churches by seeing if they would support people that were working for the kingdom of God, the kingdom in the heavens, the kingdom that Jesus was from and is from and exists in. As a soul in his new vehicle, but I would go there, and what T and Do instructions were is ask for your needs. If you need food, ask for food. If you need food and gasoline to get to the next town to continue your work, then ask for food and gasoline. If you needed something else, whatever it was, lodging. Because it was raining outside or whatever the reason was, you couldn't stay in your tent that we carried with us, which we preferred to do most of the time, but the timing wasn't working also. Anyway, so then ask for that. And we would get that from people, and some people wouldn't help us at all. Some people wouldn't distinguish, and they just give us $20 or something, And we were thankful for it. But if they didn't ask any questions of us, then we didn't say anything to them. Because they weren't ready for it. I'm talking to people that come to this channel right now, and anybody that comes to my Facebook page or my Twitter account, and wants to follow or be a friend to the things that I talk about. Because so for Mark and Sarah to accuse us as giving away information indiscriminately, well. You could make an argument for that, that I gave, the media information, and they weren't necessarily thirsty for it, and I know Mark and Sarah did the same thing. And the website does that, just gives it out there, but it's putting the shingle up so that it's available for someone to search on it, and then they have to pay attention to it. and they're going to get to a spot to where they're going to be saturated, and it's appropriate to become saturated, because you're gonna get some small percentage of the information by reading it one time, and then depending on your life experiences, the next time you read it, you're gonna get some more mind from the next level of understanding that even better and deeper and deeper, and it goes like that indefinitely until you're deceased out of these current vehicles. And that's another thing that Mark talked about. He said that they were going to die from old age, a natural death. Well, how does he know? And be reincarnated. Well, how does he know? I mean, okay, yes.
And then he said they were going to meet up with Doe and be in another class with him.
And meet up with Doe and be in another class with him. How do they know it's going to be Doe? How do we know that if the next time it happens, it's not going to be assigned to one of the students that had become able to be an older member for new students?
I don't recall, and I could be wrong, but I don't recall Doe saying, "I'm coming back to teach another class."
No, he said that he's not coming back to teach another class because the teaching time already took place. That's the delivery of the information, is the teaching time. That's the information. So the next time he comes back, which is what a lot of Christians are talking about, with his power and glory, well, it could be said that he came the first time with his glory and his power, because TNT was his glory and power, his heavenly Father. And so, but he also comes back with power and glory in the next level way with his armada of spacecrafts that are described in Revelation as the four living beings with their each with their 6 wings, I believe.
Back for the harvest.
Yeah, and it's coming back for the harvest, and it says that they can be separating the sheep from the goats, and that's taking place as we speak to some degree, because everybody separates from their vehicles at different times. And the next level decides what to do with those souls or spirits that are separating from their vehicles according to what those souls and spirits came to believe and came to do with what they believed. And their thirst. And so the next level sorts those souls and spirits into boxes, into, databases, whatever you want to look at it,
That'd be crazy to know, like, that you're, like, gonna die of old age and be reincarnated. Like, that's assuming quite a bit.
It is assuming a lot. That's right. People ask me that. Now I know.
He said it like a fact.
I believe right, and I can't tell you. I shouldn't use the word can't, but he used like the word can't like repeatedly in there about things that he doesn't know, and he doesn't know that he doesn't know them, I guess. And because we all lose next level mind if we don't. We probably lose it. We lose it if we're not pulling on it. Right. It becomes faded like a memory,
If you're asking a question and you already know the answer, you're not waiting to hear the answer.
That's the big thing with a lot of Christians.
And it seems to be with Mark and Sarah.
And it seems to be they're demonstrating that. And if they've got some
They
other...
already know all the answers.
Right, like when
They're
they...
not asking for...
Like when I asked them if I could put some clips of Doe speaking or T speaking in the music videos I was making, I was gonna sell them, because the music, is my medium for that, and I have a right to. Doe did things where he wanted to see us be able to support ourselves by doing next level things, and putting out their clips in music would be doing a next level thing, because people would hear those clips and they might be curious about it. I don't think it would really enhance my sales, except for collectors maybe. Probably generally people stay away from the things that I write. But and I don't have a problem with that. I would, but
Carlotti is not a loathsome person. Um, and we can't be the judge of anybody. And some people say things out of anger or frustration. I am very guilty of that. I've had my own judgment of Carlotti based on interactions I had with him, I guess 5, 6 years ago. Carlotti is not a loathsome person.
not at all.
And he may be very, very upset and use very strong language on his blog in regards to Mark and Sarah and the lawsuit. But again, like I said at the beginning of this live stream, we are real people. Carlotti is a real person. And when people are attacked repeatedly and defamed, and you're gonna react, you're gonna have a reaction to that. And when you believe in something and you see somebody else that says they believe in the same thing and they're going against you, and then they sue you for $100 million. Carlotti, they want 218 million from, I think. I mean, how do you think people are going to respond to that? Like, we are humans. We're human just like you. And so just think about like how you would respond in that in a similar situation. And Carlotti doesn't need to admit that the class was waiting for a UFO or anything. He was in the group for a couple of months, a few months, according to his own testimony. So he might not have been involved in when they were waiting on UFOs decades before he joined the group. So I'm just saying, like, it's not...
Yeah, I wanted
we cannot be the judge of other people.
Well, maybe this would be a good time. Is there another comment that needs to have some attention? Because if not, I'm gonna go back to the comment that I left about Mark's video. We've touched on a bunch of things, but there was one part that I particularly
see, and that's why, like,
wanted to touch upon.
A lot of the reason why I don't. This is the most I've talked on this live stream in probably almost 2 years or something. I don't know, since when I tried to scrub myself from it because of the negative attacks that I kept getting and I keep getting, and I'm probably going to get after this video. Somebody's going to comment that I need to keep my face shut or whatever because they hate me and they whatever. I have a lot of criticism directed to me, and it's hard for me to handle that. And it's hard for Carlotti to handle that as well. And people think it's okay to, like, say things and that, like, we're not real people. I just don't. I am a very empathetic person. So for me, it's hard to understand why people would say things that are mean and just have no qualms about it and act like, oh, well, you're on the internet and so you deserve what you get. Like, okay, but do you want to be like that? Do you want to treat people like that? Do you want people to treat you like that? Carlotti can have whatever kind of opinion that he wants about us. And like I said, I've had my own, back and forth with him. And we don't have to like each other. We don't have to be friends. I don't think that Carlotti has a low opinion of Sawyer or myself. Carlotti hears Sawyer say things that he disagrees with, and he addresses them in the way that is appropriate for him, which is on his blog. He and Sawyer have met in person. We've all met in person. That would never have happened if Mark and Sarah hadn't sued us all. We were at odds with Carloti when we all got sued together. Mark and Sarah forced us together, which was beautiful, actually. All of the former classmates should be working together. Period. That was my thing when I came to this information. I was like, okay, who's left? And can I talk to them? And oh no, why is there this fighting, and why is this stuff going on? And that's how I got where I'm sitting today. I don't know how to say that. People have their opinions, and we all have a right to express our opinions. Carloti has said some very vile things about Sawyer, and that was the problem that I had with him. And that's okay. We've all moved past that.
It's like in the classroom, if somebody has something to say, I would offer, every time almost I did, well, not every time, but I would frequently say to people during my stream that if I'm saying anything against what T and Do were saying or teaching, I want to know about it. And so if anyway, I was opening that door, okay, and so Carloti had things to say about that. And so I would examine it, which is what the way that T and Do gave us to deal with somebody else bringing something up that you want to be brought up, would treat it. I would examine it and decide what about it applied and what didn't apply. If the shoe fit, then wear it. If the shoe didn't fit, then put it aside. You don't tell me that directly in response to a problem I had with my partner at the time, Alex Odie, where I gave some type of correction to Alex Odie, and I was really hurt by having maybe hurt him a little bit. Not that I did so in any kind of a cruel way or anything, but sometimes being faced with the truth is difficult to handle. Yeah. And we can easily become defensive, or we can say, where students had to learn to just say, thank you very much, I'll examine that, instead of being all defensive right away. And because, but T and Do didn't initially say that there was anything wrong with being defensive. They only gave us new ways of doing things when they knew that we needed those tools to overcome those characteristics of being defensive. Now, of course, if you're in the human kingdom and you're brought before the law, then you need to have a good defense. And you don't want somebody to say something to you that could incriminate you. But that wasn't happening in the classroom. We didn't have people, accusing us of, well, they could have, I guess. That looks cool.
I just finished a
That's
mandala that I've been
gemstone.
A mandala I've been coloring for a while. You guys probably can't see it, but that's okay.
Well, I can tell you if I can see
people
it.
Don't really. But I just finished that, so I am proud of it.
There it is.
I'll cut it out and laminate it and stick it up on our ceiling. Okay, that's enough. I'm just happy that I finished it. Whoop, whoop.
So, let me go through this one thing that let's see.
Piper Baroque had said, I think a good judge would see that the decision should divide the materials, one party to possess the materials for generating wealth, and another group maintaining the materials in the public domain. One group can hold the rights of material gain, and another group can demand possession if all materials for free distribution to the public. Why not? Seems like a scholarly way to end the dispute.
I wonder if Hyper Baroque, if you have any court cases that you could refer to where they did that.
Well, and we had talked about
Because then we can make it part of our, if we end up, or if whatever happens, if there's different
the public
things
domain.
to be talked about, public domain is one of them that, we want to see happen.
Yeah, I think that was Sawyer's initial thing was let's just put everything in public domain. We just want the material available. That's all.
Yeah, and the
where
court,
it can't potentially be corrupted or whatever. Like upload all of the audios to either YouTube, Vimeo, wherever it wants to go. You wanted to go, Mark and Sarah, but upload the audios, and not like one every month or I don't know. Just upload all of them. Let people listen to them as they want to. Upload all of the documents that the group would want shared. I don't know. We don't
want to have a religion that then hides certain things.
But we're not trying to generate wealth off of the information or anything. The reason why we made shirts is because we wanted people to see that phrase, Heaven's Gate, what if they are right? We wanted people to think about that. The reason why we made a shirt with the older member picture that Alodi created based on Tiendo's description of an older member, we wanted people to see that image and get familiar with it. So when the next level comes back here in mass and they see those figures, people will go, I like those guys. Those are the good guys.
If they do see them, yeah.
We just wanted people to be familiar with the imagery.
Well,
we didn't want to make money.
More accurate way of looking at the members of the kingdom of heaven. Because if you ask many Christians what a member of the kingdom of heaven looks like, you're going to pretty much get a blank, right?
We wanted to...
It's not going to be a Cupid.
We spent over $1,000 making those shirts. We wanted to, of course, make that money back.
Yes.
And then we wanted to generate enough money, like another $1,000, to order another batch of shirts.
Right.
So we don't want to make any money we don't want to profit or anything off of any of the materials. We wanted to, like a non-for-profit operates, make enough money to keep generating materials, pamphlets, little books, a graphic novel, a cartoon, a coloring, what have you, an app, a game, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we want to do. Dolls. What?
Movies.
All kinds of stuff.
Actually documentaries talking about all the misconceptions that the public has about them. Just so it's accurate, so that there's more accurate information available. And people can go look for it themselves, and if they read all the materials and stuff, they'll see that there was none of this happening, that cults are, claiming that are happening in these other groups, that these facsimile, I responded to somebody recently saying that they weren't a cult in the way that people think about cults. Okay, I didn't go into the detail of that. They were the cult of cults, because they were the only one that was true. and all the other ones were facsimiles that have little pieces of the truth happening in different ways, which you can extend that to the political groups and, everything are all parts of the culture, and everybody's got some positive parts of it and some negative parts of it, and probably mostly negative parts of it relative to the next level because this planet has become so corrupted, but everybody still has the chance to grow enough out of that corruption to where they can see the truth and the next level. This is where Mark gets that from. T at one point said that everybody that came, all the souls that came would return. But I don't know that meant, return, right. But that return means go through the same lessons you went through when you left.
Everybody in that briefing.
Right, everyone in that briefing, and but then new souls were given too.
Yeah, they said that there were ethereal.
Yeah, there were on the briefing. There were individuals with physical vehicles on the spacecraft before they came in the 1947-48 time period, and thereafter, whatever crashes were that they were part of, their souls were part of. And then there were souls that were planted for the first time that might be hearing the information right now, right during when Doe was talking or after Doe left. They talked about that. And that they would, like also in the away team from Deep Space Services before departure, it talks about what the condition is for having your soul saved. Okay, so that's where, in a sense, Mark, I think, can be talking about, that he's talking about being saved for a future opportunity. And the requirement for that, one of them was, to stand up for T and Doe, for be willing to stand for them and accept the consequences and maintain that stand until they actually leave their vehicle. That's what it says. Read that away team document. It's packed. It's packed with information relative to now, and that's easily proven by the same document that it's relative to now. So. So how people disseminate the information is up to the person to use their mind and their connection, asking the next level, asking not the next level, like Kathy was saying before, asking T and Doe, because anybody can use the terms next level, and they don't know what that is, so then it's not going to go anyplace. Yeah. But when you actually ask for the names T and Doe, you're actually sending out a direct address to them. To the computer systems that members of the next level have to hear you. And it's got to be a genuine asking.
It's definitely different.
And it's got to have thirst to it. And you might not get the answer that you're thinking about, but the answers will come in a way that you can have a sense is coming from them and is probably correct. But it can also come in a way that you don't recognize until after you get something. Yeah. Something comes to you, an idea, and then you can think, oh, wow, I wonder if that was from the next level. So you won't know for a fact. They're not going to come and talk to certain people and give them direct new instructions on anything, because that's what the lower forces do after they leave. And they're allowed to do that, because it presents us with the option of learning the difference between what are lower forces thoughts and what are next level thoughts. And the next level thoughts are all evidenced by everything that T and Doe taught. The lower forces thoughts are everything in the human kingdom that you can think. Even though there's good things in the next level, in the human kingdom happening. Because the next level, like T said, there's more good than there is bad in the world. But there's more quantity of badness, evilness, more quantity. So more individuals that are on the bad side of things, and that's to the next level to judge. We can't judge it for one reason is we don't know who's going to change. Somebody could change and accept responsibility for what they recognize as a lesson and try to do things in a way that is evidencing more of the next level's ways. And that can happen to anybody. Lucifer could even do that, potentially. Although, the more we get away from wanting to know what Tiendo said and thought about something, the less we are able to recognize the difference, and so we can think then that we have the answers, and that we're meant to lead the world in some way.
I mean, that's really the litmus test is, did you hear Do say it? Did you hear T say it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it written in the Heaven's Gate book? Is it in any of their materials? Is it in the posters? Is it in the Power of Goodness? Is it in anything that T and Do said? As long as you're going back to them,
Right.
you're going to get
Right.
what they said.
And you'll get
And
current
that's why
answers.
That's why the tapes are so important. So whenever I'm like freaking out, it's the craziest thing. A number will pop into my head.
I've seen this happen a number of times.
A number pops into my head, and I come to Sawyer and I say, we have to listen to this tape. And he goes, okay. And we listen to it. And usually I'm a couple minutes in and I go, oh, wow. And then I'm crying, and it's speaking to exactly what I needed to hear. And even there'll be references to like something I just saw on TV, or like one tape I was listening to, I was literally sitting there. I have this weird little bump behind my left ear, and I was sitting there kind of worrying it. And then all of a sudden, Doe on the tape says, I don't need to hear about the weird bump behind your left ear. And I just get constantly amazed.
Yeah, like opening the book to that session 7 that is talking about, that we're not taking care of our own needs if we want to be servants of Tiendo. But that doesn't mean that we can just not do anything, because being a servant of Tiendo is to, get a job to where you can make sticks to pay for the food. Not expect that people are just gonna flood you with donations and things like that, even though that's happened to us out of the blue. Getting a big tip. But
that was so helpful.
Yeah, at that time that was really helpful.
That paid for our place
to
like park for a week.
It seems like
we didn't have that money.
Yeah, we're constantly getting help when we're at the edge of our rope. And, financially, we are at the edge of the rope. In fact, we're going to have to struggle to pay our bills next month because we've got so much flooding here.
No, we're not, because we're in Cincinnati.
Right.
And it's okay for us here, and the next level is going to provide what we need.
But I'm going to go out and beat the bushes.
Not what we think we need.
But I want to look, I want to be open to doing things even if we don't have the money, if it's possible. If Tiendo want us to travel somewhere, well, if they wanted us to do it, they would provide a way to do it.
Exactly.
And that could happen in all different kind of ways. Somebody could say, okay, I'll pay you to come over here and fly you over here and give you the hotel.
We don't want to fly. We'll drive our motorhome.
Yeah, we'd prefer to drive with the motorhome, but that's expensive.
It's so awesome. Like, imagine going on a road trip and you have everything that you want in your house with you. But then you have everything in your house with you while you're on the road. So, like, stuff breaks and yeah. But we have our bed, couch.
It's nice. We've been, and we've been. This motorhome actually is evidence of how we've been taken care of,
That's right.
because we went to the dealer, and we had a little
We
money
went to
for a
our
down
dealer.
payment, right? We had a little money for a down payment,
Yeah.
and we had trading in. We had 2 cars to trade in.
And our that little trailer that we bought, that brand new.
Well, that was for the motorhome, though, right? In addition
yeah,
to the trailer.
we gave all that stuff. We
Right,
gave
but
them.
the first time when we got the trailer, we didn't turn in any cars.
No.
In fact, we just had the down payment, and then we got the deal,
Yeah.
right? So then we had a trailer, but it was
17 feet.
17 feet. It was too small, and it didn't have a generator and things like that, and
And
so
the car wouldn't have pulled it.
right, the car wasn't. That was the real reason. I
Yeah.
tried to make the Toyota Highlander that I had able to pull it, and it probably could have done it, but it probably would have broke down pretty
Yeah,
quickly.
we would have busted it.
And but anyway, so we decided to go back to the place where we bought the trailer and ask him if we could trade the trailer in and 2 of the cars that I had before I met Kathy, because she had her own car that we were using the most, even though we used all of them. But
We did.
yeah, but we traded those in, and that one car wouldn't take. I forgot why.
Well, it's because the title wasn't in your name.
Oh, yeah.
They would have taken it, but the
It
title
was in my
wasn't your
daughter's name, which
And that
is
served us well, though. We were able to get money from that car later
yeah,
when we
yeah,
really needed it.
right. That's true. But anyway, so then they gave us a deal for this motorhome, which is expensive to pay for. We're not living in any kind of lap of luxury, and we're not in a recreational vehicle, really. We're not in here for recreation. We live in it, and it's so we got to work to pay for it.
And it's a huge
But we're
challenge.
capable of it, and we're capable of working, and I don't mind working. I like working, but I would like to be able to do more. If the next level would have us do more with our time, there's all kinds of like book ideas I have,
I'm
and
fixing to start college.
right. So Kathy's going to go to college for artificial intelligence.
I'm going back to school.
Anyway, so it's
And I'll be 51 on Monday.
so I'd like to see Mark and Sarah come to a settlement quickly to where all the information can be public and that we won't sell it. Okay, like they can handle putting the tapes together in batches and selling them, and letting people but still providing, making transcripts. We could take the money actually from that and make transcripts and then provide them for free as a book, but then also bind them and sell them if you want.
Right,
As long
like
as
I've
it's
been
provided
talking
for
about
free.
for years, the Heaven's Gate Study Center that but that's the problem with it is I want it. So the next level may not necessarily think that's something that needs to happen on this planet. But
Right.
my desire was to have a Heaven's Gate Study Center. Like, I feel like I can see it in my mind's eye. I can see a room with, little booths that aren't too comfortable, but a little comfortable. And there's a monitor. You can take notes. There's a notebook. There's headphones. You can listen to, you turn the computer on. All of the audios are there. There's a searchable PDF of the Heaven's Gate book. There's, a resource center for people to come to. There's an opportunity to stay and maybe fast and maybe try the Burroughs cleanser. Or, like we had, ideas, and where there would be a central gathering place for people to come physically to access the information. That was like my little pie in the sky utopia. But digital is just as well, and we see that with in-person stuff that bad things can happen and people can get hurt. We can get hurt. We are hurt.
Well, speaking of which,
We just want to share
okay, so
the information.
when I keep on not getting to this because Mark said regarding something he felt he said around the 8:53 mark in the video that's posted on Varsity Bookworm's YouTube channel or so that she said you can't leave in your human body. You can't. It's not possible. The human body cannot survive in space. This is what Mark was saying. They'll let them go to Mars. They'll let them go to other planets within the solar system. That's fine. Anything else, the next level will stop. It because the human body is not made for outer space travel. It can't take it. The bone structure breaks down and the tissue structure breaks down. It can't. So what happens is a body is made for people as they come closer to their time. And just so you all understand, with those 38 people have left the planet in their human body, could have privately gone on a ship, yes, and not had a word between said, no one would ever be known that they left. But they wouldn't have physically left this planet in those bodies. They would have left in the bodies that had been prepared for them and the bodies that are being made for those individuals. Which it's a kind of a convoluted mix of thoughts there.
That's what Mark said?
Yeah.
Okay. It's hard to know.
And I think where he's getting that from is it's true that human vehicles aren't made to be in the environment of the next level on their spacecrafts. They probably would break down, but we don't know. Tiendo did say that a human body can be taken on a next level spacecraft, and they could move humans to different places on spacecrafts. So that would be within the solar system, like he was saying that's possible. So I can see where he might be coming up with that, but to make it sound like they couldn't have left with those bodies would be like saying that Jesus didn't leave with his body, or Enoch, or Elijah, or Moses, which T indicated had happened in the book UFO Missionaries Extraordinary. Okay, so but without reading that, what I wrote in the comment that the Varsity Bookworm Stricken turned comments off, so it can't be seen.
Well,
but I'm going to put it on my Facebook
too.
page. I just haven't done it yet. But I'm going to take a quote from page 89 in UFO Missionaries Extraordinary. It says, "The only reason Jesus reappeared to his disciples after his death was to tell them he was flesh and bone. He was not spirit. He didn't have to be crucified and rise from the dead. He just proved that he'd changed over into another creature and could even heal its body and take it with it into the next level. Now the whole world has twisted what he said into believing that if we're good little boys and girls and go faithfully to the grave, we'll get some little spirit body that can go to heavens. And it's an illusion. You do not have to die." And then there's another spot in the interview, in the UFO Missionaries Extraordinary book, on page 106 that says, the question starts from somebody, Brad Steiger maybe, said that it has been suggested that your followers are prepared to fast to the point of starvation. Is it true that your followers must die in order to gain the price of admission to a UFO for transition to the next level above human? The two then answered, that's the way he wrote their names in that second interview, was They do not have to die any more than Moses died or Elijah died or Enoch died. They will be lifted up wherever they are. Their metamorphic conversion, their change, will be accelerated. Some short time after we go, they will be prepared to leave. When they are prepared to leave, they will be lifted up. So I'm saying here that note that the qualifications for leaving with their vehicle included their metamorphic conversion would be accelerated. Tiendo would talk about it as the next level would give you a little pill or something to that vehicle, to that physical human vehicle that was already gone through a certain amount of conversion. They were going to give you what Doe would talk about as the final ingredient. And that receiving that final ingredient would enable your vehicle to exist on the spacecrafts with them. And whatever that entailed, maybe to be given a spacecraft that was designed to be able to operate within the atmosphere of the Earth in order to help tend the garden by observing things that humans were doing and reporting those observations back to the next level by a certain criteria of what to support. So the next level could give elementary school level new members of the next level tasks appropriate to show that, to prove that they were not going to change the instructions into doing things their way, which is what the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls did. And it's depicted in Genesis chapter 6, that they were sons of God that mated with human women, talking about as the male and female kind of operations. And I think what I've put together in that is that they went through a reverse metamorphosis in those vehicles when they left the next level's service, because they started to do things without asking the next level whether that was something appropriate to do. And that's kind of evidenced by the Book of Enoch, talking about how some began to teach humans how to use herbs for healing and things like that. That you could say, well, why wouldn't they want humans to know how to heal their bodies with herbs? And you could easily know that the next level wants to form. They want to introduce those things to humans at a time when it's appropriate for them to have that information. And that might be when the food supply was so degraded that they would need those things. That's one way of looking at it. And another way of looking at it is that they want the next level. They want people to, when they get sick, when they get a problem, to project to the highest source they can imagine existing in the universe, into the heavens, into the distant heavens, so that it would be out of range of the space alien souls. And later on we learned that the next level can communicate with humans in ways through radio signals that the humans don't know how to decipher and measure. And that the space aliens don't know how to communicate on all of those channels, but they might be able to communicate on some of those channels. So the key to getting away from having the space aliens answer our prayers is to go into the distant heavens, because the space aliens are only allowed to remain and operate within the near heavens, the near heaven. And heaven being a definition of a certain area that the next level, and this is where Mark was talking about, that humans weren't probably going to be permitted in those areas. But we shouldn't ever limit the next level by saying what they can or can't do. No, we can say what they can do, because if it's been given to us by Tiendo, but we can't say what they can't do, because everything's possible to the next level.
So Joseph is talking about the interview, and the reason Mark is so dangerous because he's so manipulative, and people don't know that. So when you hear him saying things, you automatically assume it's true, or I don't know.
He says things so
He
matter of
just
fact and so
he just
like jovial even.
so like when you're asking, you keep thinking about the question asked to him about why he's sharing now, and Mark responded, "There's a window open at this time." Mark has no idea if there is a window open or if there isn't a window open. And if Doe or T came to him and said, "The window is open right now, tell everybody." Well, we know from what the tapes and from Sawyer sitting in meetings for 19 years that Doe said that that wasn't going to happen. That when they were gone, they weren't coming back to appear to people and say, "You go do this, you go do that." There's no new direct instructions coming down because there's no representative on this planet to lead us into that gate now. They're
But
gone.
the window is open.
Yeah, I'm not saying the window's not open. I don't know.
It's already open. We don't need Mark and Sarah to open the window.
They have no control over that.
They're
And-
using that term to
and-
describe some project they're working on.
And right, and there are potentially many reasons why Mark's sharing now, which we're not going to go into because that's part of our court case. For Mark to say things like you said, that he said some good things, like a lot of us are maybe on our 5th year of knowing this stuff, and that he's on his 50th year of knowing this stuff. So, do you think that somebody that says they're a Christian and they're not following the words that Jesus said, they're not acting like Christians at all, and they say, "I have been a Christian for 50 years and I know my stuff. So I've been doing it for 50 years, I know." Do they? Are they doing what Jesus asked them to do? What Jesus instructed them to do to reach the kingdom of heaven? A lot of Christians are not. And that is actually addressed in the New Testament about those types of Christians. So now we hear Mark saying all of these things, but we have to look again at Mark's fruits. We have to look at Mark's actions. And what has Mark done
And Mark's
for the
not
past?
alone in this.
Right.
We don't know
But
if
what
Sarah
has,
agrees with
what
everything.
has
but-
Mark and Sarah been doing for the last, let's say, 50 years, like he said? What have they been doing? Look at their fruits. One thing that they did is they sued Rakoti's daughter less than 10 days after she found out her father died. And they said, "Give us back all the information that he stole from us." They
used that term.
they acted like Rakoti was a criminal.
They did, and they presented
And
him as he's trying to make
that's-
money with it.
So that's one of their fruits. Another one of their fruits is coming after Sawyer. Another one of their fruits is attacking Carloti. Another one of their fruits is having videos removed that have Heaven's Gate information in them because they're not the ones that posted them. Another one of their fruits is threatening multiple lawsuits to multiple people trying to share the information or use the logo or do anything.
Which we have
the-
firsthand knowledge of.
Other fruit, yes, they've attacked everybody that's tried to support us, so we can't say if anybody is supporting us, or if we're doing meetings anywhere, we can't say where it's at because they'll send a letter to those people and they'll say, we're going to take away your business if you host a meeting with Sawyer and Kathy.
That's what they did with Grapeface.
That's another one of their fruits. Like I said, they're suing us. They give interviews to people who have posted just straight up lies and misinformation. And they give material to people who also do that, like 2020 and...
But they won't give us that tape of Doe on the Bridge.
But they wouldn't give Sawyer any tapes. Sawyer doesn't have any tapes from Mark and Sarah.
No, that's not true.
They gave you some?
Yeah.
But you got them from
I got a set of Beyond Human tapes. He sent me two
tapes.
Cases of the Heaven's Gate book.
I meant the audio tapes.
Yes, on CDs. On 2 CDs.
And he sent you the ones that Cody had
I think actually
made.
Rio sent me those CDs, but Mark and Sarah, they
there's
say
only-
TLAP Foundation on them.
Right,
There's 2 meetings on each one.
That's what I'm saying. There's 2 meetings on them. So you got potentially 4 meetings
Yeah.
out of them.
I think there's 2. Maybe there's only 1 on each one.
And then you're not supposed to have any more.
Right.
You're not allowed to have that, Sawyer.
Even though Judge Breyer said that they were supposed to distribute Rick Cody CDs in the new format.
And even though Sawyer was actually sometimes the one pushing record on the recorder in the meeting, he actually recorded some of these meetings and they won't let him have them. He is actually the author of the reason that tape is actually made was Sawyer in only a few cases.
This is just talking like in legal terms.
Cerroti was probably the primary.
That was the only author. And T.
Right. So, but these are the fruits. The other fruits are they kept the website up. The other fruit is they went after San Diego County and they spent over X amount of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's what they told us.
But guess what? They wouldn't have had to do that if they would have followed the instructions they were given. If they would have gone to the storage locker like they were told to do, not just send Riccoti and Oscoti, Mark and Sarah, get your butts to California, get our stuff out of storage, work with Riccoti and Oscoti, all 4 of you.
That's right.
Not just 2 other guys.
And anybody else they wanted to
If they would have done that, then they wouldn't have had to have sued San Diego County.
They would have got all the cars.
They would have had everything. And there wouldn't have been any problems. But they didn't do that. Do you want to know why they told us they didn't do that? What they said to our faces? This is another fruit of Mark and Sarah. They told us we couldn't go to the storage locker because we were identifying the bodies. We were identifying the bodies of our dead class
Phoenix.
members. We were identifying their bodies. That's what they said to us. Okay, so that makes me think, whoa. I was floored. I was like, God, that must have been really hard to be walking through the morgue and looking at all your former classmates and saying, yes, this is Marshall Herf Applewhite. Yes, this is Junoti. Yes, this is so-and-so. Well, everybody had their IDs on them, picture IDs on them. So, the coroner already knew who they were. And then Mark gave a Bardo methodology interview and said, we were in a meeting with our attorneys when a woman rushed in the room and said, the Heaven's Gate group has killed themselves. And they said, oh no, we got to get in front of this. And then the cops called and said, identify the bodies. So, you were in your lawyer's office in Phoenix, Arizona on the phone identifying bodies? That's why you couldn't go to San Diego and get the material like you were told to do? Why would you lie about something like that? So that's another fruit of Mark and Sarah.
Yeah, I guess this is necessary for the record because everybody's going to talk about, there's all the scuttlebutt, about this and that.
Why aren't they doing what
But
Doe told them to do?
there's something else about the um,
Why
about
won't
the
they
thing
show
about
us?
dying.
Why won't they show us the instructions that they say that they got? They say we got instructions. It has to be done in a legal basis. Okay. Well, can we see that? Because we see all the other letters and none. It doesn't say anything like that. It doesn't say anything like that at all, guys. Where are you getting that from? Oh, we have our instructions. We know. We got him through email. We got him through fax. We got him through the phone. We got him. Okay, well, can we see it? No, you can't.
So here's another little piece of evidence that the class members, Doe and the class members, expected to leave with their physical human bodies. Okay, and it says in the document, our position against suicide, seen as a tab in on the Heaven's Gate website. It says, we fully desire, expect, and look forward to boarding a spacecraft from the next level very soon in our physical bodies. Okay, then it goes on. Then they go on to show their consideration for leaving without their physical bodies and even leaving by their own hand. Okay, in that document. And but getting on to the same subject, there have been a number of audio tapes after T left her vehicle in 1985 that showed Doe not open to leaving by their own hand unless T came to him in some physical way to give him that instruction. And so I brought up in the comment that I also recall T and Doe expressing that the next level can pick up a human vehicle in their spacecraft, but perhaps they wouldn't go into deep space, which might be what Mark is referring to. Plus, did the next level take Jesus' vehicle onto that spacecraft within that cloud? It was converted over vehicle. Anyway, I already talked about that, but I'm just reading my comment that was banned from this video. Well, maybe it's not permanent. But anyway, then it says, if T did choose for those 38 plus 4 or 5 to leave with their physical bodies, T and Doe expressed a number of times they didn't know what use the next level might have for those physical bodies. And they also indicated around 1978 and other times that it could happen they'd leave with their human vehicle and have their soul body moved out of the human vehicle and into a next level prepared physical body, which Mark also referred to, but I wanted to add some additional thoughts to. Then also in the comment I left, it says, also, it seems to me Doe was covering his bases by having students pack a bag and have money in case T wanted to heal their human vehicles from the drugs they took and use some or all of them in some other task on Earth. That was completely possible to also happen. And you can even see the evidence that the next level can cure a vehicle by what Jesus was said to have said in the New Testament, where you could be healed from drinking a poison or
Snakes.
yeah. So the next level could heal the vehicles even after they took that material. Anyway, so then Mark goes on to say, it's very physical place, physical crafts, physical beings, physical places. It's not one place. You next level isn't a place that's out in Alpha Centauri or something like that. But why say where the next level isn't? How do we know that they don't have a base in Alpha Centauri? That's kind of crazy. I think he's trying to sound intelligent and trendy, but it's Mark, you don't need to do that. You know, just stick to what T and Doe gave us. That's all the intelligence we need. I can't recall. See, he's representing T and Doe to people in the world, and so that's it's the ultimate, like Jesus said, blasphemy, because that's what the word means. That you're teaching
changing
people, you're
stuff.
giving people things that are not from the next level's mind. Even if you're doing a little bit here and a little bit there, you got to be really careful about not overstepping in doing that and wanting to find the correction. So Mark, I think, as a student of Tiendo, which I'm not saying that he's not, uh, um, should want to hear the things that somebody is going to bring the evidence to. You know, not just say my opinion, but bring the evidence to it. Some of the evidence. I didn't bring all the evidence. It would take me another, 6 or 7 hours to try to come up with the other references to whether they would consider whether they wanted to leave with their vehicle. I think Junodi also talked about it in another document that they preferred to leave with their vehicles.
Well,
I
and
didn't refer to that one.
something I'd like to say is that, like, it really stinks to, like, listen to audios with the intention of trying to prove Mark and Sarah wrong.
It does stink.
Like, we were like caught in that mode for a while, and it sucked. But we can't help but hear stuff on the audios every single time and think, wow, they're just going completely against that. Have they not heard this? Or
And they
like,
would say often would say that there were updates, but they don't recognize how they haven't heard a lot of it. They only heard tapes from 1987, and then anything else they listened to, I don't know. But they don't evidence listening to other things. They don't talk about it, so I don't know. You know, they don't give reasons to think that they were trying to share the information that they didn't hear firsthand. And if they didn't listen to it, then they also didn't, because they had this idea in their heads that Doe didn't want to share the information with the public. And you can hear that in the audio tapes that Doe made, right at the time when they were still in the group, talking about that. But they're not accounting for the fact that Doe was always looking for the next steps. And that if he felt like T was leading him to being public again, they missed all that talk. Because I don't know that they were being sent those tapes. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe Logodi and
it seems
whoever
like they missed all
Dan Sodi were.
the Beyond Human. It seems that they missed the very videos that they posted on Venmeo. The final exit, Doe is literally crying, almost begging people to hear this information, and desperate for people to know so they can be saved. So somebody that wants to save everybody that is capable of being saved when they're gone from this planet, I don't think that intention of theirs changes. I think the intention, as I understand it, from literally over 400 audios that I've listened to multiple times, is that the information needs to be available so everybody on this planet, every soul, has an opportunity to hear it. If the information is hidden, how are they supposed to hear it? How are we supposed to tell them if we're sued for $300+ million? The only thing we can do is use our words. And that's not what we were instructed to do. We are to use T and Doe's words. And they're actually recorded down. We don't have to interpret them. We don't have to tell them to you. We should be able to play it for you.
Yes.
So you can hear it yourself.
Because Doe's way of talking and everything,
it's mind-blowing.
It's so clear. It is mind-blowing. It is so clear what focus he had to get that graduate class to clean out there to overcome the world, to clean out their abode, their vehicle of all its humanness. I know it's hard to believe. It's hard to think that that's true. But that's what Jesus was teaching too. And Jesus was important, very important. And Mark kind of downplayed Christianity without using the name Jesus as being no more significant than, in at least the way I heard him talking about it, as Buddhism and Islamism and I don't know if he mentioned Hindu, but I think he mentioned Buddhism.
So what about Doe saying that he is Jesus?
Right.
What
So
about that?
How could it not be
We don't talk about
important to that Christianity be linked with,
We don't talk about being T being God the Father. We don't talk about that.
Doe uses that word Heavenly Father often in his Father in Heaven, often in the Beyond Human series,
Yep.
not because he's religious, but because that's the program that we have, the terminology, in order to reference the highest being in the universe is that we can understand. Like Jesus gave us, he gave us the instruction of how to talk to his older member. And that would be talking to him as well after he left. Even though for his disciples, they were given instructions to use his name to talk to him. And yet he knew that the lower forces would jump in and get space alien souls to act like they had the name Jesus, which happened to Paul on the road to Damascus, where so those communications, so the name would be corrupted. Except the thing is that isn't known to a lot of people is that there's more than a name to the seeking of communication with Jesus after he left. It's that they had already established a connection with his mind, and their thirst to know the truth about things is also part of recognizing the next level mind, and that's why even if it's the one thing that's decent about the current, to where we technically think we can talk about things that were hidden from us in the past years. But even that's being corrupted, okay, as we speak, to where, it's evident that there is no salvation on this planet. There is no heaven on earth. It's impossible to have heaven on earth unless a member of the next level is actually here, and there are no older members of the next level here, and any of the students that regardless of compromised behavior, that are acting to try to deliver the next level information to people, they are serving as next level information in the current. However, they're judged by the next level, and however they might need to come back for future opportunities.
Joseph, in regards to the lawsuit, I don't think that as far as I'm trying to remember if I think that we have said in our answer that Sawyer at times was responsible for actually recording some of these audio tapes that he is not supposed to have access to any longer. I wouldn't say that the court is disregarding that information. Just to say that. We have given them hundreds of pages of information and evidence.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. And that's why I said if anybody who wants that information, and it's hard to say that, yes, email us and we'll go ahead and send you those documents, because I don't know if you're going to be somebody that's working for Matt who is, buying is making people pay
Yeah.
for this information. So if I give somebody these documents and they go ahead and give it to him and then he can go ahead and use that to charge people for it. Like, that's not cool. I don't want to be used that way. So I am somewhat hesitant to offer that, even though I did say ask us and we'll give it to you. But see, that's the problem with when people like stab you in the back, and that's why Carlotti doesn't give interviews, because people will say whatever they have to say to get what they want, and that sucks.
There was a lot of bull in that Joseph Coates says his Embargo methodology interview read like a load of bull. And yes, there was some bull in there. I don't know how much, but I mean, there were things in there I learned that I think were true about Mark's experience. But he blamed Doe for the
Yeah.
reason he was sent out of the class. He said that Doe was paying too much attention to students was saying about them, I mean, not them, about Mark,
And
because
Mark also claims he doesn't know why Sarah left with him.
which that's hard to believe when you're living with somebody for all those years, and what he
Well,
said about that to the
why didn't
public
somebody else leave with him?
was that they were sent out of the class to do a task. And that's not true. They weren't sent out of the class to do a task. The task was to stay in the class. For me, also.
So as far as Mark and Sarah
But
copywriting
then,
the information,
one second though.
that's part of the lawsuit that we're working on. They copyrighted the information before they had a lawsuit or anything, and we're going after that, and we'll just see what happens with that. So
Yeah. Let's see.
they
Maybe I
can't
can skip
prove
what I was saying.
they can't prove why they how they had any instruction to do that. And San Diego County found that out as well.
Riccoti, I said in the comment that they put Riccoti through hell. And we have Riccotti's manuscript. And he wasn't, well, talking about them so much, really. But he said, I don't know if it was in that manuscript or an email that Carlotti had from him, because Carlotti was working with him on a regular basis during that time period in 1997 and 8 until Riccoti left the second time in February of 78, I think it was. But it says that the reason Riccoti gave the master audio tapes that he got from storage to Mark and Sarah
Back to
was
them.
because Mark and Sarah agreed to disseminate them,
They finally agreed to do that, but
and didn't.
yeah, but we see that they told him that.
But then they're saying that they do
So they could
because
get
they
it.
send a tape to one person here and one person there, or whatever. So that's their form of dissemination, because they don't want people to think. They don't want people to believe in the teachings, because they think that they're going to commit suicide if they believe in the teachings. We know that because that's what they told us in the preliminary injunction to the court. That was one of the reasons why they wanted to restrict our usage of those tapes, and that the court even recognized that wasn't happening. Nobody was committing suicide because of T and Doe's information, at least after 2000. And that even on the website, it encourages people to leave by their own hand to get their boarding pass for that brief window of time, however long that was
There's 2:30
or is, because I'm not who can say when it ends. uh, um, which I recommend against. I always recommend against because they also said that humans need their vehicles to learn lessons through. And we're humans. If you don't think you have human behaviors and ways, uh, um, uh, I think you're pretty fooling yourself. And this is the opportunity to serve the next level and show them what we're made out of, and go the distance, and do the task that's available right now.
Do you
Get
want to
that
wrap up?
information to people.
Do you want to wrap up?
Sure.
It's 2:30.
But I think Yinko says, do you think the steps get better from 1987 on? Uh, um, uh, um, the steps, I don't think I would use the term better. It's like the way that Tiendo taught was that all the lesson steps of becoming a member, of qualifying to graduate into membership in the next level, in the labs in the next level, uh, require overcoming all our human characteristics. So each human characteristic, like sensuality, is a human characteristic. Like anger is a human characteristic. Jealousy is a human characteristic. Gossipy is a human characteristic. And you can see the list of the human characteristics in the major offense list and the lesser offense list and the 17 steps in the Heaven's Gate book on the Heaven's Gate website that you can download for free in text format, even to this day, which is great because the next level does set it up that way. And Mark and Sarah have continued to allow that to be there, and I think that is a great service. Anyway, so those are the characteristics, those are the steps. So, like, let's say you learn how to restrain your anger, okay? I'm not bringing that up because of Kathy's lesson for restraining the anger. But let's say you learn how to restrain your anger. It doesn't mean that you won't still have anger, but it can be said and done in a way that's more next level like.
Yeah, and you're not
Uh,
losing control.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that there's not a justification. Jesus even talked about that, if you're angry with your brother without a cause, that's a problem. Okay, so you need to show cause to the next level. That's who we answer to.
Well, and I like the going into the temple and flipping tables. Like, sometimes you need to flip a table.
Right, and Doe talked about that in the last tape we listened to, where he was not prone to do things that other people were going to be upset about. But he didn't have that mindset. If she saw somebody doing something that wasn't right, then she would say something to them. Now she picked her times and places, and way
It's 2:30.
of saying things. So that's also part of it. Yes. Is there any more things in the?
I think we've been going for quite a while.
Yeah,
so.
we have. It's probably like 4 hours. So,
Lots
so
of
let me
things.
finish this thoughts on the steps, and that is that. So, each lesson is like a step, and if you learn to restrain your anger, but you haven't learned how to uh, get rid of negative thoughts, get rid of doubts, get rid of those are new lessons that you still need to learn, and you don't stop learning the lesson of getting rid of anger because you're working on, you know, other things in those major offense lists that you recognize that you have those characteristics with. And some people can skip steps to where, because they've learned that already. They don't have a problem with that. but they have a problem in some other area. Uh, um, and there's all kinds of areas so that we all have plenty to work on.
Okay, real quick, do you want to address Yinko about the KOP radio interview where you stepped in? Rakoti and Ivanoti were talking first. Do you remember that day?
Yeah, I do. I remember going into that radio station in Portland, and it was great. That we had somebody that was willing to give us a voice for the public. We're advertising our meeting, and at the meeting we put up posters all around, and we had a meeting, and not that many people showed up. We were in like a courtroom because in the
Oh yeah,
courtroom
there was footage of that.
they actually rented out the space for people. I don't
Yeah,
think we
and you
paid for it.
you were talking to that guy about Ekankar.
Eckankar, right, having to do with what T and Do talked about as like, uh, 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 it's like people that believe in Ek, when they die, then they get greeted. Some of them can get greeted by previous people who died believing in Ek, and taken to Ek, whatever that is. It could be, some space, some place in on the moon for all I know. I don't know where it is exactly in this atmosphere or the atmosphere of the Earth, where it is. But spirits can uh, take people there because certain individuals know how to go to certain places in the spirit world that other spirits don't know how to go to. Yes, I had history with Sarah's vehicle. Well, yeah, I'm not. I don't. I just. I'm not like against Mark and Sarah in a personal kind of way. I'm against them leaving impressions that don't evidence coming from Tiendo's mind, and doing things that don't seem to be coming from Tiendo's mind. And I've asked, though, if I'm off track in that regard, and I know Kathy's thought about it, and when she's expressed it to me, whether they're really on track and we're not, I examine it, I think about it, but then I don't see the evidence of it. And so, I mean, they are on track by keeping the website going and by keeping the Vimeo site going, but there's a lot more to being on track than doing that minimum. That's like, well, I mean, that's a big service. I don't think Doe takes that lightly. But this is the time now again for this to come up, I guess,
Yeah,
because
they probably spent at least $100,000 on their lawsuit against us. We in actually next month will be our 3-year anniversary of being sued. So for 3 whole years we've been going through this lawsuit. Lawyers are not cheap. Their lawyers are not cheap. They have multiple firms in I think California and Nevada and Arizona, or maybe just California and Arizona. I'm not 100% sure, but all that hundreds of thousands of dollars that they've been using to sue us to shut us up, to not let us share next level information, they could have been using that to share next level information. Instead, they're using it to silence a former class member who wants to share next level information.
And Carl Odie, former class member too.
Yeah.
And Juan Odie, former class member also.
If they could sue Juan Odie, they would, but he is a citizen of Venezuela, so they cannot. Even though they did threaten him in our chat room a few years back and say they have international lawyers.
Right.
So they threatened to sue Juan Odie too, who just wants to share the information straight from T and Do.
He was directly given a packet or more than one packet of information and instructions also besides that, in being part of the classroom in the 90s, in addition to when he was there in the 70s.
So, like, we have been live streaming for a really long time, and we've been trying to, like, readjust our schedule for working here, but the question, Joseph, of how to reconcile, because I've struggled with that as well. Why would Doe give them such a monumental task? Why would T instruct Doe and to give them such a monumental task? And it is a test for them. It is a test for us. It is a test for everybody on this planet to share their information as it was given. That is Mark and Sarah's test. And I personally, not that it matters, and I'm going to leave and Sawyer can answer, but of course he can answer. It's his channel. I feel that Doe wanted to give them the opportunity to serve because they were asking for it. And
Right.
I also feel that Doe knew that they were financially stable and that they would be able to handle it. And Mark and Sarah were primarily in Satellite 3, which means they were in the house that T and Doe were in, maybe not all the time because there was different retreats and whatever. They worked, my point is, they were in what people always like to say, the top echelon. They were in the insider of the insiders of the group.
But they really
They were
weren't.
the movers and shakers in
But
the
it
group.
looked that way from a human level.
They were
I know,
set
'cause I
above
experienced that.
other people as overseers. People came to them
Right.
with questions. They were in a position of perceived authority in the group. They closely communicated with T and Doe, whereas a lot of other group members did not.
Not that much personally, though.
But they were like responsible on a quote unquote higher level. That's my terminology. If people looking outside of it always want to say, well, Sawyer rose so much far in the ranks of the group that he became an overseer. Like that was his task for a time, yes, but
I
and
needed that task.
He was in Satellite 3
Maybe
for a
to
time as
overcome
well.
Self-confidence.
But people moved in and out of positions. And Mark and Sarah primarily were in Sat 3 the entire time that they were in the group. So one could understand how they would think that they were leaders and perceive themselves as a little bit more highfalutin than they actually are, or that they should even be trying to present themselves as. They are like all of us in that they can be corrupted by the lower forces. To sue a former member that just wants to play the tapes on his channel and then discuss it, I don't understand how you justify that. I just don't understand it.
It's convoluted thinking.
I can't understand it. So we can't understand God's reasons for why he does what he does. Or Jesus Christ's reasons for why he did what he did. We can't understand that. I can't understand.
Well, we do have some pretty strong clues about that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make this into a big thing, but you'll see evidence in the tapes.
It's 234. Sorry.
234.
It's 234.
Oh,
I
the
usually
clock's wrong there.
I usually notice it when it's 12:34, so I go it's 1, 2, 3, 4. But it's only 2, 3, 4. But still,
Oh,
that's
1,
cool.
2, 3, 4, right.
2, 3, 4.
So, if you listen to the tapes like in the 300s, 331 maybe, 333 maybe.
Yeah, see, we can't even transcribe the tapes. They don't want us doing that. And we don't want to tell the tapes in our own words. They've already been told in the words of our teachers. To answer your question, actor Michael Merchant, and I hope that you're successful in your acting. Good luck with that. I do photography and I've worked with entertainers and stuff, so I hope that you're successful. I'll check out your channel. Not that that means anything, but
Yeah, good. Uh, so you'll hear in those audio tapes and others, um, T and Do, and but mostly this occurred after T left. That Do would, well, not entirely. No, actually, it started when T and Do sent 19 individuals out of the classroom, and there were we were at Wyoming at the time, and we moved to another location in Utah. We were living outdoors in tents, and they warned us of the behaviors and ways that they didn't want people to remain having, which were listed as having sex and smoking pot. Okay, at that time, and so right, and so they and so they sent those individuals to a different camp from the bigger group of like some 70 something individuals or 80 even at that point, close to that anyway. But and I was in the camp that was the 80 individuals, and T and Do came to that camp and told us that we made the first cut. Okay, but then T and Do kept track of those individuals for years and then lost track of them. I'm not sure why it happened, but worked with them to some degree and gave them instructions on getting jobs in the world and things like that, which we ended up doing also in the bigger group. But we didn't know where the whereabouts were of this group of 19. And eventually, that's one example of them uh, um, keeping up with students that left because T and Do sent them out of the class and because they weren't demonstrating really wanting to learn the lessons by stopping certain behaviors. So they had to separate them out. Okay, so there's a lot of ways of thinking about this relative to the human society and things. Anyway, um, but then a couple of those members made it back into the class by unusual circumstances and stayed in the class and were in the class when they left in 1997. Okay, so T and Do was willing to always take somebody in if they could find us. And they didn't give anybody ways of finding us. They had to find us by their own desire in communication with the next level. And the next level then helped them find us. And I can prove that by what people would say would be supernatural kind of ways of thinking, because it doesn't involve direct human evidence of getting back in touch. And okay, then, so when Mark and Sarah left, were sent out of the class because they didn't want to abide by the all the lesson steps, which in that case was trusting our own mind over T and Do's mind. That was the lesson step that we were in, and we had been in that lesson step for quite a while, and that lesson step actually started with Mark. That we were given that lesson of saying I could be wrong in front of a decision and a judgment, even though there's extremes to that. But overall, we all needed some help in that regard if we were going to take in only the mind of T and Do, which was always the way that it was taught in the Old Testament and the New Testament, and Jesus taught needed to happen in order to become a member of his kingdom, his spacecrafts, their laboratories. Anyway, because we needed to know how to follow instructions, just like people in labs now need to learn how to do formulas and instructions so that they don't botch up some major things that could cause people death and injury if they screw up. So they need to learn how to do things. The same with the next level, that people need to learn how to recognize and abide by the instructions given in any given task, even though it's never static. It's always a growth process to learn more and more. Anyway, so Doe offered Mark and Sarah tasks, and Mark and Sarah didn't want to do some of them because it's on the tapes. And Rick Odie was involved in it, and Dan Sodi and I think Liv Odie, maybe somebody else, were instructed to keep up with Mark and Sarah, and and answer their questions and things like that, and deal and report to Doe different things that Doe wanted to not throw them away about, the same way he didn't want to throw me away, and he offered me tasks as well. Um, and so, but I was of a, I was so distant from wanting to do his but look to his mind. I was so distant from looking to his mind at the time that I didn't take the opportunities that were given to me. And Mark and Sarah also didn't take the opportunities that were given on several occasions to Mark and Sarah, because and Doe realized and actually asked them, told us that he talked to Mark and Sarah, and he said that as long as would you want to do a task, you would only want to do a task if you're going to stay in Phoenix, and you know,
as long as their circumstances didn't change at all.
Right, their circumstances in Phoenix or wherever they were living didn't change. And they agreed, according to Doe, they agreed with that. And you can hear that in the audio tapes. Anyway, so, and Doe was disappointed by that.
He
because,
said he was disgusted.
Yeah, disgusted, I think, is one of the words he used. And that didn't mean that he stayed in that condition of relationship with them, because then he decided that maybe they could be of service when we went public in 1994. So he offered them service, and they were of service in 1994 by hosting a group and helping and coming to some of the meetings that we put on, one of which I was in attendance of.
Well, and you actually went to their house as well. But remember, it's almost 3 now.
Yeah. So that's just the way the next level works. They give us chances over and over again.
Yes. And this is yet another opportunity for Mark and Sarah.
So with that said, yeah, I hear what you're saying, actor Michael Merchant.
It's just been streaming for probably 5 hours.
Yeah.
Now. It's time to start winding down.
Right. His attraction, Dan Soder's attraction to, so the vehicle's attraction, yes. That was probably one of the areas that Dan Sodi had to deal with. No longer being an overseer or helper to Doe, traveling with him and being attracted to him. Yeah, I don't doubt that attraction part, even though I don't have direct evidence of that. So anyway, so yeah, we got to go. I see Henry Helen copy, I see what you're saying. I don't really have the time anymore. I'm exhausted and we have to get to bed and we have to work in the morning. But we'll do some more streams for certain. And any questions I didn't answer now, if you put them in the comments, I'll try to address them in the comments.
Okay, go.
So good night, folks.